We good? Okay. The time is 7 o'clock. I hereby call this is Ridgewood Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Bisick, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Brogan. Here. Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mr. Donnie. Here. Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Lumbo.
Here. Can everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice of this evening's meeting has been given to the Ridgewood News, the Bergen Record, and the clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices have been posted in the office of the board secretary in all of our school buildings. Thank you. Dr. Gorman, we have another special student presentation.
We do. So once a month, we bring in the elementary students and the middle school students to talk to us and share what's going on in their schools. And this month, it's Orchards Month. So Ms. Ferreri is going to introduce everybody and tell us a little about the school, then move on to the students.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman, Board of Education. Thank you for having Orchard tonight at your meeting. We are very excited to be here. I brought 5 fifth graders with me who are all going to share some of the awesome responsibilities and independent and grown-up jobs that they get to have at Orchard. This is something really special to us. Last year, it wasn't able to have these things incorporated into our school experience. So we're really pleased to share with you some of the leadership opportunities that they can partake in. So you'll hear a little bit about tech team and safety patrol and student advisory team. So without further ado, I'll let the fifth graders take it away. And we're going to start with Avery.
Hi, my name is Avery. One special part of being a fifth grader at Orchard is having kindergarten buddies. I remember when I was in kindergarten and I had a fifth grade buddy. Her name was Kate. Kate made me feel so welcome and happy in the Orchard school community. This year, we have the responsibility of having 1 or 2 K buddies. We run with them at Jingle Bell Jog, and soon we will make applesauce with them for the Thanksgiving feast. I think that having a kindergarten buddy is a really important element at Orchard School because it helps kindergartners learn how elementary school works. Without having one, they might feel confused and scared. Overall, fifth graders are having a fun time at Orchard this year, and we can't wait to spend more time with our K buddies.
Hi, my name is Christian. I'm a safety patrol member at Orchard School. We help watch the kids at the start of the day. We make sure they are in the right spot and make sure they get inside safely. There are certain spots you get to pick where you go. There are 4 spots to pick from: first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, and kindergarten. My favorite spot to pick is where our third, fourth, fifth, and fifth graders line up. Sometimes it can be hard to be in charge of kids my own age, but I like being a leader. I'm happy to be a safety patrol member this year.
Hi, my name is Nora. I'm a part of SAT, which stands for Student Advisory Team. At SAT, we do lots of things to help our school. Right now, we are organizing a food drive for Thanksgiving meals with SSA. We will also do the same for holiday gifts and Toiletry Tuesday for senior citizens. We also get to help first graders every Thursday with Word Study. Although I love helping them, first graders are very independent and we don't always get to help them much. This year, our SAT Club is also working with Ridgewood Unified Club. Recently, some SAT members spoke at CBA to promote awareness for Down syndrome. I'm proud to be a member of SAT.
Hi, my name is John, and I'm a member of Tech Team. Tech Team is an awesome thing for 4th and 5th graders to do. Each week at Orchard, we have a community building assembly, CBA. The Tech Team is responsible for putting out the microphones and equipment. Out of 8 people in Tech Team, there are 4 teams of 2. 3 of the teams raise and lower the microphones for different grades, and the other team sets up the microphones and the mic stands. When people are speaking, we make sure the microphone is just right for the speaker. This is a great activity for the older students and gives us a chance to help out our school. Hi, I am Sophia. I love all the opportunities that I have in fifth grade. One of them is being a lunch helper. Unlike bringing the lunch crates full of lunch boxes, being a lunch helper means putting together ordered lunches and putting them in the spot where the student is sitting to eat lunch. I do this for the kindergarten classes. Even though this club takes up a bit of my lunchtime and sometimes most of my lunchtime on Friday when it is pizza day, it's very fun. At first, I had trouble putting together the lunches and it took so much time. But as I kept going to the cafeteria every day and putting the chocolate milk with the container of hamburger, the work got faster and faster. A lot of the time when I'm done with the lunches for Mrs. Jasinski's kindergarten class, I usually help my friends who are doing the other two classes in kindergarten. Overall, I love being a lunch helper and providing lunches to kindergarten.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's interesting, I didn't hear much about the curriculum there. I heard all the other things that are going on, from lunch to safety patrol, which I did when I was a child. They used to actually let us go into the road and stop cars, but I know we've stopped that practice. But I've heard a lot of these great things, tech team, everything. So it's very exciting to hear. And thank you for sharing all of that.
Was that the high school report? Because that sounded like so many things. It was really great. That looks really interesting. Thank
There was
you.
a Nora there also.
Yeah, there was, yeah. Great
So
job.
Thank you so much. We
for
appreciate it. And
coming.
hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Absolutely.
Be well, everybody. All right. All right, Ms. Train, we're going to talk about what's going on at the big high school.
Yeah, top that.
I'll try. So RHS had signing day on the 10th for all seniors who committed to college. A group photo was taken on the steps of RHS with a lot of smiling faces and a total of 32 seniors. On the 9th, the seniors attended a pasta and photo event. More than 300 people attended the dinner and cleaned out the food station while watching childhood photos sent in by parents on a slideshow. For the first time since COVID, a maroon and whites performance took place on the 11th. Lots of people were attended and we're happy the tradition is still alive. Girls soccer had the state sectional semifinals game last Tuesday. They won by 1 point and had the state sectional finals on Friday and won with a score of 1-0. Almost the entire school has been cheering them on during their late afternoon games, and we're excited to watch them move through the different ranks. The team is moving on to the state semifinals at Westfield on Wednesday. My fingers are crossed. Boys and girls varsity cross country competed in state sectionals on the 6th, and they won by about 70 points. The varsity girls team had their state group championship last Saturday and placed second. Winter sports have begun. Boys varsity ice hockey had a scrimmage today against Montclair Kimberly Academy, and the freshman and JV wrestling teams have a tournament on the 18th. The football team had their last home game on the 12th against PCTI. Sadly, they lost and their season came to an end, but they were supported by the student and parent sections until the last minutes of the game. The girls varsity volleyball won their state sectionals against Clifton in 2 straight sets. They had another game last Friday against Williamstown in the state group semifinals. They unfortunately lost, but kept fighting until the end, as the second game was within a 5-point difference. Unified Sports is up and running this year. Recently, they have been hosting clinics for students in the RISE program, and club members play with the children to boost their spirits and help them build confidence. The Meditation Club has been meeting weekly to work on stress management. Mostly juniors and seniors attend the meetings, and the sessions serve as a quiet place to rewind and prepare for the rest of the week. Often the club plays videos that emphasize ways to de-stress and cope with stress and homework. Intersectional Feminists had a bake sale 2 weeks ago. The profits they made from the event were donated to Texas Choice to help support women and the pro-choice movement. DECA has been meeting frequently for districts in January. They've been doing role plays and going over strategies for successful presentations. The club has a leadership conference next week in Boston to help further prepare students for districts. Project Interact is decorating honor flight shaker cans in preparation for Veterans Day donations. They are helping put together luminary bags for New Year's Eve for a New Year's Eve light ceremony. A few weeks ago, the RHS band placed second at US Band Nationals with a score of 94. New players started production of It's a Wonderful Life with a new director. They are meeting every day to run lines and work on stage directions for their show in December. Seniors and new players also submitted their concert and senior solo proposals, and students in all grades are looking forward to concert auditions in December. The Rhapsodies, Acapellas, and Maroon Men have a concert on the 22nd to help raise money for the programs. The choirs have been meeting twice a week to help prepare for the event and expect a large crowd. That's all I have.
Excellent. It's a lot going on and we're winding down in a lot of those things. That's great. And then we'll be ramping right back up. So thank you so much for sharing all that, Nora.
The first wave is all.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the next wave is coming right behind it. Great. So we're going to start with our first comments from the public section. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to make a comment? Just want to remind everybody, it's on our agenda that just please be mindful of the 4 minutes, to limit your comments to 4 minutes, and just please state your name for the record. There's a sign-in sheet there. You can do it when you're done. But thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Julian Chadishvili, 146 North Van Dien. There is a long-standing tradition at Ridgewood Public Schools that educators and parents are partners in their children's achievement. And with a recent emphasis on children's mental health and with efforts to decrease anxiety, we would like to support these efforts and also move our schools into the space where they provide the skills needed to succeed in the 21st century. There is an abundance of research that relentless pressure to succeed, often measured by grades, can contribute to students being anxious and even engaging in self-harm. Particularly now when students attend the in-person classes for the first time in 18 months, when the transition into high school is stressful in the normal times, but in the current situation, children have a shallower reservoir of resilience. Please ask Superintendent during your discussion, what has the district done to ensure that the grading practices do not add to students' anxiety and stress? What has the district done to ensure that teachers remain empathetic and responsive to many learning gaps that children have this fall? What has the district done to ensure that they provide actionable feedback and make learning the process, but not a finish line that is common among the majority of teachers at RHS, and their non-uniform grading policies and curriculum practices? What has the district done to make teachers accountable in parental outreach when a student is systematically unsuccessful in a test? For example, in a math class, a significant discrepancy in grades is observed between the student's class and homework grade when he's a strong A student, but his performance on the test where he consistently receives the lowest grade. The teacher did not provide any outreach to either student or a parent until a week after the marking period was over, when the student was asked for the first time about how he prepares for the test. Again, the ownership is on the student when it's clear to everyone that failure in student learning is about what teacher did not do. What plan has been developed to support struggling students who have not had real education experience for 18 months, I'm sorry. What is the articulation process between middle school and high school teaching staff to ensure the students are adequately prepared? That happened before COVID. Why does Ridgewood Public School not have a unified grading policy, neither in middle schools or high schools? Why is there not systemic input of grades in Skyward and consistency among teaching staff? Why is there no actionable and timely feedback on the assignments for each student with the exact next step for improvement? Why does a high school teacher feel it's okay to tell the parent that providing feedback is exhausting? As a resident of Ridgewood for the past 20 years, it pains to see our schools ranking decreasing every year. All other public school districts in New Jersey that have higher ranking than Ridgewood, if we remove specialized and magnet schools, have one ingredient in common: an average advanced placement participation score, which is at least 10 points higher than Ridgewood's 63%. However, out of those 63%, only 4% contribute to AP math courses and 13% contribute to AP science courses. Why is the average SAT score only 1287 And that is with thousands of dollars and time that parents invest in supplemental support and tutoring? Why do middle school students make less academic progress given where they were last year compared to similar students in the state, as the data shows? Why the gap between how low income students perform on state English test and all students is troubling 34%. The job of any school is to know, nurture, and challenge every student. It is the job of Ridgewood Public Schools to know and consider every child individually, holistically, and equitably, not as a student ID number in the system, if we're serious about mental health equity of our children. Thank you. And I made it under 4 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Hi, it's Susan Madison, 428 Linwood Avenue. Since I don't see a separate comment section for the ARP plan, I assume this is where I would speak about that. It's been 2 weeks since I saw what the district had laid out to do with our ARP ESSER 3 funds. And I think I'm still as angry as I was 2 weeks ago. It just boggles my mind that we would take this money and consider spending it on teacher training, not next summer, not just next summer and the summer after. I think as you heard from the past speaker that just was up here, when I was out in the community, what I was hearing from parents everywhere is that our kids have just been dropped in to the deep end and left to sink or swim. It's not bad enough that they had 2 years of interrupted schooling. Now we just pretend it didn't happen. Do you know most of the freshmen, or I won't say most, but many freshmen had 4 tests on the day after Halloween on the second to last day of the term. These kids last were in school as 7th graders, the freshmen were. They don't have the study skills and nobody has reached out to help them. How much better would that money be to be spent on one-on-one support for our children now, or teacher training for our teachers now? I actually feel very badly for our teachers. Who can take 2 years of curriculum and teach it in 1 year without any kind of support? I'm sure if they were felt able to speak here, they would tell you that they need help now, not next summer. It's so baffling to me that I wonder, do you not know all these things that are happening in our schools, or do you not care? Frankly, since there's been no progress on increasing two-way dialogue between the community and the schools, I'm starting to think that you don't care. How can we spend $20,000 on a survey for late start, but we haven't bothered to survey our high schoolers anonymously to find out how they're doing? How come we don't have routine town halls with the principals so that no kindergartner is sitting at their desk alone at indoor recess playing with a toy? Surely, at this point, this far into the pandemic, we can come up with a better way of getting people's concerns surfaced and addressed. Maybe some of that money could be used to set that up. I don't know. I mean, I think I speak for a lot of people in town. It is time to bring us into the process. And please, please, please do not spend that money on teacher training in the next summer or the year after. The money needs to go now for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura McKenna, 861 Bingham Road. I'd like to echo many sentiments that Ms. Madison just made. I understand that Ms. Polster is going to talk later on about the ESSER money, but I hope there's big changes that are planned, but in case there's not, let me just give my 2 cents now. So the money has been divided up. Okay, the biggest chunk is $1 million. That's a lot of money. We can do a lot with $1 million. Instead, what that money is being spent on is physical equipment and supplemental money for aides, for bus drivers, for other minimum wage workers that no longer want to work for minimum wage, no benefits anymore. At best, that's tangentially related to COVID. This money is intended to help make up for the deficits that happened during COVID, during 18 months of lost education. These students need summer school and tutoring. Yes, it's been allocated elsewhere in the budget, but only like $40,000. What's that going to turn the lights on in the building? That $1 million should be going to one-on-one tutoring and going to summer school to help the kids who need it. And they need it now. I understand $500,000 has to be spent on professional development. But what kind of professional development? The idea behind the professional development was to help teachers with accelerated learning now. It's not supposed to be spent, well, it shouldn't be spent on consultants pushing fringe ideas that have no real world applications. And I won't say more about that. What kind of other professional development should happen? 18 states are spending their ESSER money on re-educating teachers about reading. We're in the midst of a big, all the science about reading is coming out. And now the pendulum has, swings back and forth, and now we're back to pushing phonics. So there's all these teachers who that isn't their background. So they're re-educating teachers on new methods of doing reading. 18 states are spending their ESSER money on that. They're spending money on tutoring, summer school. This is what everyone else is spending the money on. Why aren't we? Other ways that we could be spending money on professional development. How are we training our guidance counselors? Should we be having them start to look at other, not just preparing kids to go to four-year colleges, but there's other options opening up now. Career and technical education. Is our guidance department, are they up to speed on all the new options in that area? There's a lot that we could be doing. We could be training our sports coaches to help out with mental health issues. They're the ones who spend so much time with the kids, having heart-to-heart talks. Maybe they spend more time with the kids than the English teachers or math teachers in high school. Can we be helping them work with the kids? Can we be providing someone at the high school to make sure that every student is involved in a club? Not just, the high flyers, every student in some sort of a club. Does every student in the high school have a friend? I would love to have somebody, just a staff person, put some money to that simple goal. So we have a lot of opportunity here. Let's do something creative with it. Let's get the money to the kids. Let's help these kids and families who've been incredibly traumatized in the past 18 months and do something super interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't see any hands raised. So with that, I'm going to close the first comments from the public portion of the evening. There will be a second one at the end of the meeting.
All right.
So, Tom and Mike, I know we don't respond to comments, but through the chair, I would like to request the first commenter, if you can send the board there was a lot of data and numbers that you referenced. If you can send us an email with all of that data, I think that would help. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Polstra, you'll be talking about the ESSER funds. I don't want to steal your thunder, but we did get comments from the public. We took the comments from the Board of Education last week, and we've incorporated that, and we've made some adjustments to the funding. So, Ms. Polstra.
Thank you. I don't know how this goes to the full screen. So as we shared at the last meeting, I don't know why my slide is not coming up quite right, but we have 4 or 5 different allocations set for the ESSER 3 funding. The main grant, the Accelerated Learning Coaching and Educator Support Grant, evidence-based summer learning, evidence-based beyond the school day, and the mental health support grant as well. All right, the main grant is $1,066,230, accelerated learning 456,952, evidence-based summer learning 40, evidence-based comprehensive beyond the school day 40, and mental health support staffing 45. I'm just going to hold for a moment.
You see,
Yes.
those are the amounts that we were given for those particular. So when we hear that it's just $40,000, that was the amount for that particular grant, correct?
Yes, you have to stay within the amounts for the sub-grants. However, I have a clarification about the main grant, because what we did come to learn is within the main grant, 20% of that main grant needs to go to learning acceleration in some way, shape, or form. So that is going to have an impact on our distribution of funds across the area. We did not get that clarification until after our meeting. So that's what you're going to see reflected in the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to wait for this to come up here. And let's see. Okay, so there you can see the dollar figures, the same as what were presented the last time we were together. However, these were the allowable uses, and the list is longer than this for sure, right? But it gives you an idea of the parameters for which the main grant could be used. Right, but this is the new information, is that 20% of the $1 million must be used for learning acceleration for students. So we're pulling 213,000 out of the main grant and putting it into, as you'll see, summer learning and extended day. All right, so that is a big shift. Certainly it's consistent with the comments where people, you can go through 40,000 in summer learning and 40,000 in extended day very, very quickly. So we were pleased that this shift in the requirements, were clarified for us. So the first thing we're going to do with that 213 that comes out of the main grant is to put 113,000 of it into summer learning. We spent about $90,000 on summer adventure tuition and 612 programming. So, we know that that will be a good amount of money to be able to support summer learning. And we do have the option to spend that over 2 summers if we see fit to do so. It's weird because my screen's not changing, but it's changing up here. Sorry, so I'm going to read it from up here. And then the other place where we're going to do the balance of that 213 is to put $100,000 into the extended day programming. We had 40,000 there. That would result in about 4,500 per school, but with 100,000, that gets us to about 15,000 per school over 2 years, which is a significant increase. All right, so how did we adjust the main grant? So we kept the coverage for our permanent subs, for our lunch aides, we have to pay benefits, and some of the facilities pieces that you see there. So that's remained in the main grant, but what we have pulled out of the main grant are the anticipated increase in transportation costs and for us to do any upgrades to the controller software system for air quality. So we're pulling that out of the main grant and substituting for summer learning and beyond the school day. What we see here, and I know that we've heard feedback about this, but when you go to the allowable uses for the educator support grant, evidence-based professional learning and coaching opportunities to school staff. So it has to fit within that parameters that we are expected to, be going into certain topics that will support our teachers in the classrooms with that money. And I just want to emphasize also that even though we're talking about summer academies for next summer as a way to use a good amount of this money, with ESSER 2, we did do, and over the last couple of years, We have done summer professional development. So over close to 300 of our teachers attended professional development this summer. We pulled teachers out for training on Linkit, which I'll talk about in just a minute at the end of September. We had one full PD day in October and another full PD day in November. It gets very challenging, especially with the shortage of substitutes, to keep pulling teachers out of the classrooms for professional development. So we're trying to be balanced in our approach to this, and front loading our PD days in the fall, we feel like has made a difference as we continue to move ahead. And we do use obviously our faculty meetings and department meetings as well as for opportunities for professional development. So that is ongoing. It's not like we're not going to do professional development for our staff until the summer. So just to clarify that. So here's some of what we are looking for, or what we are considering. We do find that bringing in people with knowledge and expertise does allow us to enhance our instructional practices and our work with our students. So here's some examples of things we have done and other things that we're thinking about. We do feel like our work with Great Schools Partnership has really enabled our teachers to adjust during the pandemic and to make changes that allowed us to work with students effectively. We've had a partnership with Dr. Goki from Montclair State, who has worked with our teachers in writing goals and assessing those goals and really developing work with the special programs department. We've been pleased with the work that she's done. We have consulted with Nancy Schultz over time for best practices in elementary math instruction. We are looking at bringing in Jeff Anderson, who has written a book called Patterns of Power for the integration of grammar in the elementary grades. We've gotten feedback, and Dr. Walsh is, new as a supervisor, but is, jumping in already to really do an assessment of our language arts program and identify where we need to grow with that. And another one is just an example. The Bard Institute has done some work in writing with our language arts teachers, but Tara Taylor, our science supervisor, has been very interested in bringing them in to also do writing in the sciences and to use writing with the goal of integrating students' understanding of complex concepts in science and math with a writing to learn methodology. So, these are just some ideas. I can't say for sure that these are, but, when you bring in people with a high level of expertise, they motivate our teachers, they give our teachers really great strategies, and then our teachers are able to move forward. So we would be looking at spending $100,000 over 2 years in some of these areas. The other piece that we've talked about are summer professional development academies, really having the opportunity for our teachers to engage in 4-day intensive workshop experiences to enhance their pedagogy, to maybe revise curriculum, to do some collaboration with one another, to bring in guest presenters as is necessary, people who can share their expertise. And then, depending upon our numbers, we could also spread that money over 2 years to be able to, improve our practices and work together toward advancing our kids' academic experiences, as well as, guidance counselors or support services. So for example, this summer, when we ran summer PD, Lauren DePinto, our mental health program coordinator, she ran sessions for our specialists. So this isn't just for teachers, it's also for our guidance counselors, our LDTCs, our child study team folks. So, when I say teachers, I'm kind of using it a bit broader because we do recognize the role that everyone in our district plays in working with our students. And then the other piece that we are looking at, and I don't have an actual price yet, I'm still in negotiations and trying to nail some things down, is to secure a multi-year license for Linkit for grades K through 8. We began using it this year in grades K through 5. And what it allows us to do is to administer 3 benchmark assessments, really look at data, compare their data to our own internal district assessments, to be able to run customized reports, to see how our students are doing across the year, and to track district trends so we can inform our curriculum planning and pacing. And so, like I said, we're still, Linkit has a lot of features that we have not purchased. But there are, some potential other pieces that we're looking at, but I'm trying to cost it out, expanding it across the grades. And, we continue to tap into its potential so that we kind of know where our kids' strengths are and where we might have to do some adjustment. And right now, Jeannie O'Neill and Julie Walsh-Matthews are doing a great job with really working through Linkit. It was definitely integrated into our PD day. And it's something that our teachers are giving a lot of attention to. And again, here you can see we had 40,000 to start. We're pulling the 113 from the main grant for summer learning. Like I said, we had great success with that last summer. So we will, now have more money in that pot to be able to offer that programming to more students. And then the same with beyond the school day, 15,000 per school for 2 years. Right now, we are cross comparing, I guess you could say, different assessments. Students are starting to be identified. You will see teachers on the agenda to be approved to deliver this programming. Parents will be notified once those teachers are approved and once this grant application is in and the allocations are set, that we will start building out budgets and schedules and, begin working with our students using this money from this part of the subgrant. And then lastly, 45,000 for mental health. We want to, use supplemental staff to address the mental health needs of our students and families. Lauren DePinto is our school-based mental health coordinator. She has been meeting on the PD day, for example. She met with our K-8 guidance counselors to organize some programming. And so that money, is going to be to pay for her stipend and other supplemental staff that we may need to address the needs of our students. So again, I just want to emphasize, we must submit this application by November 24th and explain how we intend to spend each part. If we make changes beyond 10% of an assigned amount, or if we create a new expenditure, we would have to complete an amendment to that and resubmit the grant for approval. We are not able to take money, let's say, from the educator support grant and put it into extended day, for example. So we can't cross grants that way. But, we can change expenditures within a sub-grant, but even within it, if it changes by more than 10%, we have to submit an amendment. So that's where we are. I'd like to thank the people who commented in the Google form that we set up. And, again, to honor Freiberg, who is, working to keep all the parameters of the grant straight as we kind of go through getting ready for submission of the application.
Thank you, Ms. Polster. That was very thorough.
Ms. Brogan, do you have any comments?
Yes, thanks. Stacy, can you describe what extended day looks like?
Sure. So extended day will look different at each of the levels, of course. But for example, it will take place at each school, sessions for ELA, sessions for math. Teacher will host a group of students, and depending upon how many students we have whose parents want them to participate based on the criteria that we've created, we imagine groups up to maybe 10. So it would be 45 minutes after school, 1 day for ELA, 1 day for math by grade. Like we're not going to have mixed grades together. And then we're doing the same at grades 6 through 8. With starting to identify those students in ELA and math, and it would run similar. And then at the high school, right now, it's starting at the high school at lunchtime for seniors who have not met their graduation requirements. And it will be probably freshmen, maybe sophomores, who we identify for extended day programming at that level.
And how many sessions do you think?
So
Yeah.
we're planning right now, what we're looking at is starting, as when we get back from Christmas break, because we have to get the teachers approved on the agenda on December 6th. We have to get, the okay that the application is approved, all of that. Then we would start the sessions in January. And right now we're planning to run them until April 8th. But what we have to do is what we typically do with Title I as well, is to see how many sessions we have and just figure out what's going to bring us, how quickly is that money going to run out. So it will really be dependent upon, if we invite, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making up a number, 250 kids across the district, but only half of them take advantage, then that money will last longer. We've also found from having Title I at the elementary schools that as you get into the spring, some of the interest wanes a little bit and students kind of stop coming. But that's something we can kind of play by ear, but it's kind of like it's kind of like your checkbook, right? You just keep deducting and you keep running the sessions until you see the money is out.
And her Linkit, for if we expand it for K1 and then middle school, is that that would be for second half of the year? Are you looking at?
No, we would start it next year for middle school, because you want the students to take the beginning of the year assessments and then be able to track, over time. We only have the contract with them this year for K5.
Oh, K5, I thought it was 2-5.
Well, an interesting element of Linkit is that it's not only their assessments that are housed there, but we can set up a data locker and house our own internal assessments in there as well. And then what that allows us to do is to look at the Linkit assessment against, let's say, the math topic test against, and do comparative analysis from their assessments with our own. So it's kind of a place where we're putting all of our student data. And then, we are able to run very specialized and customized reports on everything from students to standards, to a whole mix of things, subgroups, all those kinds of things.
So will this help inform the parent conferences in our elementary school?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, at the first parent conference in the fall, teachers referenced the overall Linkit score that students received. We really did stay away from providing very specific data, like your child got this many right or this many wrong, or your child did well on this type of problem, but not that type of problem, because it's based on the current standards that the kids are going to be learning this year. And even the trainer from Linkit said to us when she came and we pulled our teachers out for training on this, this is not something that in the beginning of September, you give parents to hang on the refrigerator. It is intended, especially at the beginning of the year, to give parents a general overview, of, these are some things we're going to work on with your child this year. And, based on what we're seeing in the first preliminary assessment, these are what we're seeing as the strengths and weaknesses. And then we use our own assessments to line up next to those and inform. So Linkit, especially at the beginning of the year, is kind of a snapshot. And so we never want to look at just one data point, but rather, want to look at it compared to the other data that we're putting into that data locker.
Now, the state tests have not come back yet, right? Or the results from this, or have they?
We have some preliminary results from the Start Strong assessments. I will say those assessments were very short and were short. I'll leave it at that. So in the English language arts, for example, there were 10 questions. There were no open-ended responses. There was no written responses at all. There were more examples in the math section, but the state is not certifying those results, nor are they getting us the individual score reports until around December 14th. Once we receive the individual score reports, then we will send those home to parents. And again, those are one data point. It will be interesting to see, if you receive your child's results and start strong, you're like, oh gosh, that doesn't look so good, but you're seeing that your child is meeting proficiency in the current grade levels content, then that's one data point, so I think it is, some of this assessment data can be somewhat nuanced, and I feel like that's why we can't just look at one piece in isolation. And that's why we really rely on the expertise of our teachers. Our teachers are in there working with our students every day, and where they kind of see the gaps and the holes, that's where they do their best work. But, I don't think that we should ever put too much weight in just one data point, and we should kind of look at where the patterns and trends are with across time and in different assessments.
So describe the kind of support we're giving our teachers currently as they are really, hopefully by now they have a feel and assess the kids as to where they are and where they need. So they're differentiating the instruction in their classroom. What kinds of supports are we hearing, or what you are and what we're seeing that's needed?
Sure. So on the PD day, Jeannie O'Neill and Julie Walsh and Christy Durajo, I still call her Mortara, who is our MSR staff developer. They put the elementary teachers in the morning through a set of 6 different sessions related to, how to use Linkit, how to generate reports, what are strategies you can use. How are we doing with word study? Do we need to adjust the pacing? What are you seeing? In math instruction, same kind of thing. Let's look at our overall Linkit results. Where do we see standards where our students seem to be doing pretty well? Where are there places where maybe we might need to go back and review? So that was, it was a very busy day, and the teachers responded very well. In addition to 3 or 4 sessions with Christy, Julie, and Jeannie, we also gave the district grade level teams time to work together and really dig into their data and talk about strategies and ways, things that they felt like they needed to go back and focus on with their kids. So, and keep in mind too, our elementary principals meet weekly with their grade level teams as well. And, between faculty meetings, and again, that second faculty meeting every month, being used to dig into some of this data and assessment. And the people from Linkit spent time with us, and the people from Linkit are actually coming and they're working with kindergarten and first grade, just on the data locker features and how to tease out the data from our own assessments. I think that's next week at some point.
So that's elementary.
Yep.
So middle and high school.
So middle school and high school, they had their PD days that were department based. And again, it is looking at, our own internal assessments to see how kids are doing, and then to talk about strategies and pacing. Are there certain things we need to go back and work on? All of our teachers give SGOs at the beginning of the year. That also gives them a sense of where students are starting. And it's that adjustment of like pacing, I guess you could say, and also where do they maybe need to go back and do some remediation. But, even in the New Jersey Learning Acceleration Guides, they emphasize the importance of, you can't go back and reteach an entire year. Right. But rather, you're much better off focusing on depth of the concepts you're really going to focus on. So, there may be some kids who, understood some things and not others, but as the teacher, you could give that student feedback on where their strengths are or where their weaknesses are. But at the same time, do you see trends, when you're giving a student, let's say, I don't know, in physics, for example, that they're missing a certain math skill, and then, okay, I know that this percentage of my kids had a hard time with this particular calculation. let me go back and redo the math and see, is it a physics issue or is it a math issue? And our teachers are, very well equipped to be able to do that type of work. So, and that department meeting time also is really valuable in giving the teachers time to collaborate and do that.
And are the morning sessions, the PD in the morning when the students come in late, they're being used for that?
The
purpose
enrichment
too?
mornings have also been
Enrichment.
used with an emphasis on, the mental health
Mhm.
piece and wellness. A little bit around like teacher wellness themselves, but with the idea that, when we have an understanding of where we are and our own mental health and our own capacity to deal with these unusual times, when we are equipped to deal with it better, we can help our students deal better with it as well. So it's kind of a combination of those. There is some instructional, there will be some mornings dedicated to that, to the instructional work as well. We have teachers, Jeff Nias has organized teachers into teams where they will talk about one another's practice, do some peer observations, gather information from one another about what's working with their students as well. So that will also be built into the enrichment mornings as the year goes on.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Donnie.
Thank you, Mr. Lambo. Thank you, Ms. Polstra, for a detailed presentation. It was really good. So my first suggestion is, can we, next time if we don't have the soft copy in advance, can we have printouts here so we can follow the discussion or presentation, because it's very difficult to read the small fonts on the screen.
I apologize. I went home sick on Friday, so I didn't
That's okay.
finish it in time
Even
to
if
get
we-
it to you in advance.
Even if we have a printout,
Okay.
we can look through it and it's easier.
Mhm.
Just for
Yeah.
for me. So first one is, so today from the process perspective, we had to schedule the SR3 presentation and public hearing. So I have seen as part of other public hearings, it's usually a presentation and then there's a spot for comments. So are we going to have comments related to this presentation, or how are we having public hearing without a comment section on the agenda?
I didn't think this required a
It doesn't
public
require it.
hearing.
It doesn't,
Okay.
but it's, I mean,
Okay, so
I mean,
that's, okay, so that was. a
it's just
question.
we're required to have some public feedback, and we did online. People just commented this and the last time. But
So it's not public hearing, it's a public feedback.
just people have made comments. They made comments last board meeting. They made comments this board meeting. They can make them at the end of this, and they put them online. So
Okay.
that's a lot of feedback.
Okay, so for the online comments, after the last meeting, we sent out the emails. So how many responses did we get?
Fewer than 20. We had
So-
17, I think, out of the whole district.
So do you think it's because parents are not involved in Ridgewood? Parents don't care how money should be spent, or?
No, honestly, I really think parents trust the school system and that we do a good job. I really do.
Okay. But you don't think there's anything on how the survey was sent or what the subject line was, or?
Mr. Donnie, I looked at about 10 other districts today. We have more about this American Rescue Plan than any other district that I looked at
Yeah.
today.
Right. So I'm
Most of
looking
them
for-
haven't even done public presentations.
I'm looking
know,
for
it's
Ridgewood
just-
district. I'm looking for Ridgewood. that
Yes.
How could we have, I'm looking for a suggestion that how could we have increased parent participation?
I think we have the board meetings. We've sent it out, and the majority of the people don't want to make comments. That's what I think. And
Well,
the
that's
people that do
fair.
want to make comments, they do make comments, but it's the same thing with every board meeting. We had a couple of people call in, we got a couple of people give us feedback, but I would say 95, 97% of the people are obviously very pleased with what's going on.
Okay, so the feedback I received from some of the parents, when I talked to them, they'd either not heard about it, or the way the email was sent, like they said, if we were looking for feedback, the email could have specified that this email has a survey link, or we are looking for a feedback. I think they felt that it was part of a long email with a form embedded in it. So that's a feedback. You may not agree with that, but that's a parent feedback. Then, so for the $456,000 of teacher training expense, I think you mentioned there was 100,000 going towards consultants, and then 230 something towards the summer teacher trainings, right?
200.
200. So if there are no consultants coming in there, what's the breakdown? Like, where does that 200,000 go? Who gets that?
We would actually pay the teachers to come in for that because we would compensate them for their time to participate in these 4-day sessions.
And
that would have to, that rate would have to be negotiated. We would have to develop a sidebar agreement with the REA, but we have had preliminary talks with the REA and they are in favor of going and are open to that idea and thought it would be well received by the staff.
Okay. So these are additional payments to teachers to attend the training and learn.
Yes.
And the sessions are conducted by who conducts those sessions?
We haven't fleshed it out to that level of detail yet. Again, it would be based on some of the concepts that you saw there. So I know that we have heard, for example, that in English language arts at the elementary school, there's a concern about language and mechanics. And grammar. And so you saw one idea up there is to bring in an expert in that area to work with Dr. Walsh to train our staff in an instructional methodology for integrating more grammar into English language arts. So we have to kind of prioritize what, as the year goes on, I can't say right now what those sessions are going to be, but they would be areas where, we feel it's a priority for us, based on, well, first of all, the goals of the strategic plan, but also areas where we feel like we can do some enhancement and some improvement. So that's what we're thinking. In my brain, with my kind of preliminary idea, we would run probably 8 sessions or so. And again, it depends upon the level of teacher participation, whether we have 150 teachers who want to do it or 300 teachers who want to do it. We have not built it out to that degree of specific detail yet because some decisions have not been made.
Okay, thank you. And for the consultants on that slide, you had mentioned that these are experts in that area and they have been providing us best practices to improve mathematics and some of them we have been using for a few years now. So have you seen any improvement in the actual result, the end result? So a few months ago, we talked about 15% of students in both English and math were failing or not keeping up to their grade level in elementary schools, which is about 500, 600 students. So since we engaged with these specific consultants, has the needle moved? What was the number before we engaged these consultants and what's the number now?
I think it's challenging, especially because we have not had standardized state assessments for 2 years now to be able to draw that conclusion. And I think that's always a very tricky conclusion to draw because again, just like I was saying with Linkit, there are multiple data points that we look at to determine, progress and growth. There are also some shifting practices in education that we'd like our teachers to embrace. We heard comments about the stress and the pressure of grades and the impact that that has on kids. So I look at something like the middle school portfolio initiative, where that started during the pandemic. And, working with Dan Liebert from the Great Schools Partnership, we have a committee from both BF and GW that are talking about student ownership of learning, some degree of choice, but students reflecting on themselves as learners and creating portfolios that demonstrate their work that hit a variety of criteria and parameters. And so to hear the teachers share what that portfolio project has done for their students and how it has involved parents. So for example, one thing that was done at GW was the students were asked to share their portfolio with their parents and to have their parents respond. And some of those letters and emails that the parents shared, were so insightful, and it was probably more information about their child's learning than getting a report card with grades. So when you see a parent respond and say, my goodness, I didn't realize how much you knew about blah, 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 and I learned that because you showed me blah, blah, blah. So, you know, when I think about something like that and going in that direction, and we're thinking about a portfolio, right? Not only is it just about the grade and the work, but it's about the process of learning. It's about reflection. It's about a student being the owner and the driver of what goes into that portfolio and sharing who they are as a learner, you know, building their confidence, building their own knowledge of their strengths and their areas for growth. And so when we look at something like this project that has taken root at the middle schools, we think to ourselves, you know, this has been so well received by our students, by our staff, by our parents. How do we take something like this and grow it out down to the elementary, up through high school? And so starting to have those conversations about how students demonstrate their learning and what they can show us in the platform of a portfolio is a really powerful initiative that I think is forward thinking, is beneficial for students.
Okay, so they come up with some new ideas on how to improve communication within the district, or one of the examples was where different teachers from different schools work together and they learn from each other. But what happens with them year over year? So are they coming up with new techniques, new ideas every year for us, or once?
Yes.
Okay.
So like even the integration of word study over the last couple of years, we have been sending teachers to FDU, we have been sending teachers to IMSE, and we have, you know, integrated word study and multisensory reading into an English language arts program. And so when we look at our students and how they are doing with reading, and we recognize that that was a part of our program that could grow, we continue to invest in that and build it up the grades. We also have new teachers who come to us who may need some additional training in our balanced literacy components, right? So if I came here and I never taught in Ridgewood before, do I know all of the components? Like I can learn them from my colleagues, but I could probably learn them much better in a 4-day intensive, you know, week-long workshop where I'm going to be thoroughly trained on each of those aspects of the English language arts pedagogy that we expect in Ridgewood. So what do I think, you know,
So
do I think it always comes out in the numbers? And, you know, if 1/5 grade 1 year has, you know, 88% passing on the NJSLA, and then the next year it's, you know, 86%, and then the next year.
I totally get that we cannot use one data point. I'm just trying to understand 2 points. One is, can we have, or maybe we already have it, and I just need to be educated on that, any train the trainer type program where if the program is similar, or if the consultant is coming in, there are 2 different types. One is where teachers are going into these workshops for 4 days and learning, right? That's a different one, but we have some specific consultants, they are coming every year and they are teaching how to teach math or how to teach English or how to teach a specific subject. If there is, like, I'm trying to understand 2 things. One is, what is our criteria to know that their specific style is working?
I think it's the feedback we get,
From,
you know, and I
whom?
think there's
Feedback
also.
From the teachers.
Right,
And-
so that's, I have not seen that. I have asked for that teacher feedback.
I
a
put
few
it in the
times.
last FYI.
Right, but that feedback is about training for a specific group where the teachers are saying, I loved interacting with other teachers in the district. That
But-
feedback is not about the consultant or.
But the consultant is the one, as I shared in the link to the professional
Right, so
development
that's-
page, he was the one who consulted with
Yeah,
us
there's
to
specific
create those
one, and
sessions.
that's where I separated the 2. There's one
Right.
about where there's a workshop and the teachers are saying, yes, I attended the workshop. Our workshop was helpful because I interacted with other teachers in the district.
Right, because the workshop was
feedback doesn't say-
designed to allow that because that's what our teachers wanted and needed. And
Right,
it was
so-
done in a structured way,
So
you
that's
know, that
one-
was
one of
driven
them.
by the consultant who we hired.
Right, so that's one of them out of 4 or 5 different ones.
No, he helped design all of those for us.
one consultant, right?
Yeah, and if we
Yeah.
don't get, if
So
we
that's
get,
one
if we get
consultant.
negative feedback about a consultant or we see and we witness, we don't bring them back. And we've done that numerous times.
Right, so all I'm requesting is we have feedback for one consultant. So when we are renewing a consultant, if we have feedback from other teachers or whoever is participating in that 360 feedback, that they are actually benefiting from that.
Sure.
So, or some sort of knowing. So
So-
that was one example where you provided the feedback, but we have multiple consultants that we are.
So Jennifer
running.
Goki, Dr. Goki from Montclair State, she worked with the special program staff on the November PD day. You know, I suppose what you're asking for is you want teacher feedback on every consultant we hire annually. Is that correct?
Yes, anywhere we spend money and we are
So-
trying to spend money again, after
But
at my work, if we spend money on a seminar, at
Right.
the end of the seminar,
Yes.
there's a feedback.
yes, we get
So-
it every time.
So that feedback should be.
And that drives our decision-making about whether or not we bring them back.
Right, that's what I'm
That's
asking.
part of it, yes.
Right, so that's what I'm asking
So,
for.
okay.
And if that can be provided, and
But
from that
but we
feedback
talked
or-
about that,
We
you just
receive
wanted a
it.
quick summary of stuff. We said we didn't want to do 300 responses and all that stuff. Does the board want to be reading
you-
all
you-
these things?
Like,
or-
do you want to
You want us to
receive
read
like
the
staff
comments from
feedback on
staff?
every workshop that we run?
a summary or somehow, we need some feedback.
But
How do
isn't
we
that
know?
our job, like, as the professionals, to be going through this and then we make the decisions
Hold
or?
on, I just want to see, so I just want to make sure.
So
I'm
if you
right.
don't
You're
like the
asking for
teacher
the-
feedback as you read it,
You can
does that
provide,
mean that you'll decide not to hire the consultant and that decision is out of our hands then?
okay, so then I go back to my question, that what is our criteria to decide that we want to rehire somebody?
Our criteria is, did we get the type of training that we expected? Do we think that our teachers are implementing in the classroom? Does that come across in our observations and evaluations of teachers? Do we have good feedback from our administrators about whether they or not they think we should continue with somebody?
So feedback from administrators, not
And from
feedback
teachers,
So if we have, if that is one
And
of
we
the
receive
criteria-
that and we review that.
Right, so if that is one of the criterias, then that can be shared that yes, teachers had positive feedback on the consultant.
But it's also not just based on that one day. I mean, we see how it goes over several months or a year, and then we decide, do we want to shift next year or whatever? And then we continually evaluate the product that they gave us. I hear what you're saying, but
I think someone tells me if a program's not going well, I think that would come up to, you know.
Right, and then
obviously-
there have been,
it would
like
go up the chain
Dr.
and
Gorman
we'd
said, there
see it,
are
yeah.
consultants we have not brought back.
Right.
So, you know, if, you know,
So
it
think it's
sounds
a
to me
fu-
like it doesn't, you do not have faith in our decision, our decision making
I
on
don't think
that?
it's a process of, it's a point of faith. It's
Then
a
what is it?
simple process question that if.
And
we
I'm
are
telling you what the
spending money-
process is.
Can I finish?
Sure.
It's a simple process question that if we are spending money, how are we evaluating that the money we spent works?
And I shared that.
I think you gave me a long answer, but I may be thick, but I don't understand it.
Okay. Then
So-
we'll have to figure out a different process perhaps.
Yeah, I think also if somebody likes something, it's different than if it works. I think what you're looking at is if we're putting out some sort of professional development that is going to be progressing our education, how do we know that that's being effective?
yeah, but you just
If
can't
there's-
take a one-to-one either.
Correct.
Because there's 1,000 factors on a daily basis so the consultant does one thing, but you can't just say
Of
the
course.
consultant moved the points X. So that's
And a lot of
very
times-
dangerous.
You can
Professional
have any
development is
criteria,
negative,
you can
right?
have any criteria, you can then I'm asking teacher feedback. A summary of teacher feedback, not every teacher's feedback, a summary of teacher feedback, anything. Whatever your criteria is that why,
Saying like, oh, they had professional development on remote learning. It went well, it was well received.
anything.
Right, but we said we
Yeah.
provided that, but you said you didn't accept that.
No, what
in the
we
FYI.
provided was for one consultant and we are talking about renewing multiple consultants.
Right, so the
Right.
board wants to see the
All
feedback
right,
summarized for every consultant that we
Hold on,
hire.
hold on, let's not go back. Can you maybe share, not now, let's try and figure out something that maybe you'd like to see, and let's see if we can come to an agreement. I don't think this is being productive right now.
If other board members don't have a concern, then I'm fine. I'm just one of the five.
Yeah,
Right, I'm just one of
let's
the
try and
five.
work something out. We'll see if there's something
Right.
that could help out.
And then I have, last one is Linkit. So we just started this program. And it's the same question that what is the criteria? What benefit did we see to consider extending it for multiple years?
So Linkit is a program that's used by numerous other districts like ours in Bergen County. And it came really to our attention when we were in remote learning and we had to submit some reports to the state. And several of my colleagues were like, hey, we're using our Linkit data. And it was something that, was somewhat expensive that we did not purchase, given a limitation of funds in the past. And as we moved through the pandemic and as ESSER 2 funds became available in multiple meetings with people from other districts who I typically talk to, they said that they had really great experiences with Linkit. And so we pulled a team of admins together and supervisors, and we let them share with us, the districts they were working in, the capabilities of the program. And we felt like it delivered something that we currently did not have as part of our instructional program. We are in year 1 right now with Linkit, and we are pleased with what we are seeing so far, and our teachers have received training. And the decision to continue with it is because we think it's giving us good data. It's giving us, data that we have not been able to cull before. And, similar to what the point that was brought up, a couple of weeks ago, it is always beneficial to have a certain program, especially once the teachers buy in for a series of years, and to, take the time to look at data longitudinally, to give people enough time working with it so that they are able to make more and more meaningful conclusions that can inform their instruction. And Linkit is a product, like I said, that has been used for several years and by many of our peer districts who are very pleased. And I think we are seeing that same level of satisfaction.
Thank you. So to summarize, I think there is a lot of that decision making was part of the original purchase. And since the original purchase, we are seeing good data from Linkit.
Yes.
That's our. Can that data be shared with the board, or have we shared that with parents?
It's not like a state testing and you summarize it all. I mean, this is all individualized stuff that you're using. It's almost like the teacher SGOs, the student growth objectives. The teachers do this in the beginning of the year, and then you monitor the progress of the child. It's no different than we do with the reading levels, that the kids are at a certain level and you move on. We typically don't share out individual data with the board like that,
But okay, so then feedback from teachers, like who is the user of that software? Do we have feedback from them? Can I summarize feedback be shared with the board that yes, they have used it for a year and they like it? So initial purchase, I understand, based on feedback from colleagues or other districts.
Might be a
Now
little
we
early,
have
right?
it.
But we've had it for 3 months right now.
So you're saying at the end of the year, you want some kind of feedback of how effective it was with our district?
Not at the end of the year. Before we purchased something, we have used it.
Right.
What is our internal feedback before we go ahead and do a multi-year licensing?
But Ms. Plesser, this, if I'm correct though, this is part of my thing, but with Linkit, this is a way too that parents can log in. It's either the progress or it's just a way that the teachers.
No,
can track the
right.
children. Okay, so the parents aren't really, so this is something that the teachers would say that they like enjoying using it or whatnot.
Right, because
Okay.
you can look at a student's results and have in the Linkit assessments themselves are directly aligned to state standards. So what will happen is as students take those Linkit assessments, they will come up each question aligned to specific state standards. So if there were 4 questions on standard 4 in English and I got them all wrong, it will show 4 red boxes next to that standard, which gives my teacher information that I need help on standard 4. We do not have a program like that where the questions are directly aligned to specific state standards. Envision kind of does it within their unit topic tests. But when you're asking the students to, because you know every unit has certain topics that are aligned to specific standards. But if we want a holistic view, of how well are the students transferring? So now when they take that mid-year benchmark, when they take that end-of-year benchmark, it will give us a report about the students that tells us where their strengths and weaknesses are. And then, we can also look at the grade holistically across the district, where there's some standards that all our kids did well on and others that they didn't do so well on. And then our supervisors can look and say, you know what? We need to do more with this specific standard. Let's add more time in the pacing calendar to this unit in math. Or our students are struggling with, something related to informational text. Let's make sure that that standard, we spend more time on that standard when we're in the informational text unit. So Linkit gives us that level of detail that allows us to drill down and make informed decisions about how we should be pacing our curriculum, sequencing our curriculum, and where we're doing well and where we need to grow.
So I have a follow.
Yeah, so I just have a couple of more questions on Linkit and then I'll wrap up. I agree with, or I understand everything you said about that, how good the program is. And I still have my concern, and again, I'm one of the 5 votes. My concern is, and I'll just put it right there, that my concern on that is we have used it internally, but I'm not seeing that, do we have feedback, internal feedback, whoever used it, whether it was designated for parents, whether it was for teachers, have we received any feedback internally from our own users now that should we be extending the contract? Or
I
not?
can go back to the November 3rd staff feedback from the PD. day.
Yeah, but it has been very powerful so far from all the administrators and the teachers I've talked to.
So that was my question.
So,
right.
but
So I
we
think
could look into that a little bit more.
And what is the coverage? How many students in percent term, what percent of students are going to be utilizing Linkit?
Everybody, well, the assessment piece of it, grades 2 through 5 this year, with an extension for grades 2 through 8 next year and moving forward, because both the ELA supervisor, Susan Nold, and the math supervisor, Mr. McDonald, definitely think that it should be utilized at least through the middle school. And what was the second part of your question?
Right. So in that 2 to 5.
Oh, and then K1 is only using, because we don't give our kindergartners and first graders online tests like that where they need to drag and drop. It's really not necessary. We have other assessments that we give those students instead. But Linkit would still allow us to use the data locker that would allow us to cross-reference across a series of assessments.
Okay, so within whatever grades you decide, whether you decide 2 to 5, 3 to 5, within those grades, what percent of students will be using it?
All of them.
Okay, so one of the feedback that I have received from parents is their parents met with the teacher.
It's not a parent tool. So
Right.
that I want to
When the
emphasize
parent
that.
met with the teacher, if you let me finish, I think it will be better. They were told that your student was not given Linkit because it's not for everybody. They had some special conditions, and this is not for all learners. And I can connect you with those parents. So there is a feedback from teachers that where they did not thought that Linkit assessment is right for some students in class. And so I don't think it's for 100% or is it being used?
So share
I
that out.
don't know what that
We'll
is,
try and
but
find
it
out
would
what
be-
happened with
Right.
that,
I
with
don't
those
know.
children.
I haven't.
I will
heard.
connect that. And I will still like, because earlier, my understanding was also that parents will be getting some feedback from Linkit assessments. So now that's different. And I think you mentioned that we will be able to upload data to Linkit's data locker. What type of data are we going to upload there?
That's where we're housing our student assessment data this year. So our F&P results will be housed there. Our math topic tests will be housed there. That's where our teachers will put students' scores on a variety of internal assessments that are given across the district.
So is this competing with Skyward, and are we going to give up some of the features of Skyward, or?
Now, Skyward doesn't have a locker system like that.
Okay. But aren't these assessments part of Skyward?
No,
It's housed differently at the
Yes.
elementary school because the elementary doesn't have like the online grade book that you have in grades 6 through 12 because there's not a student or a parent portal at K-5.
Okay, so last one on that data locker. Will we be able to export this data if we decide to move away from Lincoln in 2 years? Do they have an export feature where we will be able to export all of our data in Excel?
We
And-
own the data, so,
yeah. I
you know,
think
they
that-
can't hold our data.
But right, so
They can't keep it from us. Like if we house it with them and let's say we decide 5 years from now, we don't want to be with them anymore, or we go to a different program, they can't hold our data.
Yeah,
so do they have the technology, or will they ask us to pay money to export the data? Can we do a self-export of all of our data?
in the past, when we've switched to other databases, we have done that. So I don't see why this would be any different, but yeah.
Okay, and the last one on the multi-year contract. For professional services, we are not allowed to sign multi-year contracts. So I don't know how software licensing is different from professional services. Like when we had an attorney or a architect, those contracts have to be renewed every year. They have to be voted every year. So I don't know how software services licensing works, but I would like to understand that we can do that for multi.
So how do, I mean.
I
don't know,
think
do you
this
know-
is like also an instructional
Yeah, I mean,
resource.
we
Okay.
constantly enter into multi-year contracts with a lot of our textbooks and licensing. So is there a difference?
So this is considered as textbok licensing, not?
No, not a textbook.
I will
But
look
it's an
into that for
instructional
trustee Donnie
resource.
and talk to the purchasing agent for the state and get a good answer for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's all. Thank you so much.
So I have 3 board
Welcome.
meetings left, and I really wanted it to go smoothly, and I didn't want to have any confrontation or conflicts, but these are the things that drive me crazy. At some point, we have to trust our professionals that they know what they're doing. When it comes to consultants, I can't imagine our professionals show up to work and say, I'm just going to collect a check and I'm just going to let this consultant come back again for the next year. So it drives me a little crazy that we have to micromanage this process. And again, I have 3 board meetings left, and it's just, we have to start a better relationship with our professionals. We have a superintendent that knows what he's doing. We have a director of curriculum that knows what she's doing. I guarantee they're getting feedback from the teachers and the administration before they do anything. So that being said, when we talk about the ESSER funds response, when parents in this community wanted their kids back in school, we had 50 parents in this room. When parents were concerned about the orchard remediation, we had 50 parents in this room. The fact that we didn't get a response is not because the parents didn't understand the survey. It's because they trusted the administration to spend the money the way they're spending it. I don't know anyone in this community that says, if I want to be involved, I'm not going to be involved. I didn't get the information. So the fact that we had 20 people, and there's 2 parents that have come here on a regular basis because they are absolutely committed and they know what's going on. So I just want to make sure we understand that if parents didn't respond, it's because they trust the administration. So that's one. And again, I want to try to leave on a high note, but those things drive me crazy. As far as your presentation, thank you, Stacy. So a couple of questions. So addressing learning loss. Obviously, we have the money set aside for summer learning, but my concern is addressing learning loss now. And so the way we're doing that is the after-school programs. So we have $140,000. That's being split between all the schools. Does that include the special needs community and all that? Okay. Do we think that's enough? I mean, so we spent $90,000 last year on summer learning, and now we have another $153,000. Is that going to be, so take 153,000, split that over 2 years, 75,000, 75,000. Is that 90,000 on top of the 75,000? So like we spent 90,000 last year. Is it going to be 90,000 this coming summer plus 75,000 from
I
the
think
ESSER
what we'll
funds?
have to really look at is when we get to the end of, as we get into the spring, knowing we have this $150,000 pot to
Okay.
last 2 years, we'll have to make the determination of, do we spend 100 this summer? Depending upon where our kids are, do we spend 100 this summer and maybe 50 the following summer? So I think that split in the money over the 2 years will really be based on where we feel like our students are. I think the other piece to it that we have to consider is staffing as well, right? So even if I could spend, the 150,000 this summer and put together, who knows what kind of better program. Summer Adventure is fantastic, but we also have to be mindful of how many students we can actually accommodate too. So I think it's kind of the balance of those two. And that's kind of the nice part about having the 2-year timeframe, is because it does give you a little bit of flexibility of how much to spend this summer versus how much to spend next summer.
Got it. So I guess, I still, my concern is waiting till this summer to address the learning loss. I almost feel like we need to address it now and have more resources for after school now than over the summer. But again, you guys will have to work that out, but that's my opinion, is that we should have more resources for dealing with it immediately.
And I think, what we see the teachers doing with their kids in the classroom and adjusting their instruction as they see certain things, that's already happening. And I also want to be mindful of the fact that we do have kids who are coming back, as everybody knows, after 1.5 years of a disrupted year. And I want to be careful that we don't run this after school stuff every single day, because we have kids who are having a hard time right now maintaining stamina in school. And then to expect them to attend, 3 days after school for an extra hour may also be a little counterproductive. And, we're talking about that mental health piece and balance. Like, I want to be careful about that too. Is it really productive for a second grader who may be struggling a little bit and reading below grade level to be told, okay, you're having a hard time in school and now we're going to make you come for 3 more hours after school?
Fair enough.
So that I think we also have to rely on our principals and teachers as we go into creating these schedules to make sure we don't overload the kids as well.
It's a great response, and that makes total sense. As far as Linkit, so I know we don't have official feedback, but have you gotten responses from the teachers? Are they open to it? Do they like it?
Yes, like I said, we did, training at the end of September, and with any new learning tool, there's a little bit of a learning curve.
Sure.
And the teachers, no doubt, this is still a difficult year. And so, I commend our staff for, jumping in with both feet and taking on a new assessment tool. And, they are dedicated, they are professional. They definitely see, I think, the benefits of having this tool. And it is just a matter, again, we've been in school for, September, October, 2.5 months. Their willingness and openness and, commitment to learning how to best use this, I think has been really commendable. And I think they see really, and I know the elementary principals are very excited about its potential and what they feel like it will do to almost even drive their conversations with their grade level teams. So I think we've gotten a really positive response overall.
Okay. And so Linkit obviously is just for the elementary schools. How are the middle schools and the high schools addressing, some of the learning loss and some of the challenges?
And I think that has been a little more incumbent upon the individual departments and supervisors. So, this last PD day was kind of built around department based. In October, it was a little bit more mixed. But for, teachers who, I'm thinking of Mr. McDonald, for example, in math, to put the teachers who teach the same courses together, to look at how their kids are doing on assessments, to say, what are the kids struggling with in Algebra 2 versus Algebra 1, and to provide them with that day to talk about where they think the holes are and where do we need to adjust pacing in our courses. So it's not as they don't have a tool
Sure.
like Linkit, but they are working collaboratively towards looking at student results and how students are doing, and then trying to make those adjustments if they feel they're necessary.
And they're obviously communicating that with the parents individually if kids are having challenges and things like that.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I think Skyward is still there and the grade book is still there. And if parents do have concerns, the first thing is to reach out, to a teacher, and say, I'm concerned about how my child is doing, and to have that dialogue and that relationship with that teacher as the first starting point.
Okay. On Linkit, going back to it. So you said that if we do decide to go with it for another 2 years, the 150,000, there were other tools inside of Linkit.
Yes.
What are we missing from it right now? Or can you tell me that?
Sure. So Linkit also has some additional features that add to the cost, of course. But one of them is like the SGO manager. So our teachers have to do student growth objectives every year. And right now the teachers kind of do those almost like by hand, I guess you could say.
Okay.
This would automate that process for teachers and make it a lot easier for them to create the bands of growth that ends up what their score ends up
Streamlining
being
the
in that process for them as part of their evaluation. There also is a module that allows you to go through the INRS process, intervention and referral services. So right now, all of our documents and forms are kind of homegrown. And, we could create in this, and I haven't learned too much about it yet because we haven't even seen a demo of it or anything, but the idea is that all of your plans, goals, interventions through intervention and referral services could also be housed through Linkit and could kind of be synced to those assessment results. So, there are, other features of Linkit that we haven't explored. We didn't want to bite off more than we could chew this year. So, it does have potential to provide us with more as well.
All right, so I guess my sort of negative part of that is that if we were to go that route, that we could potentially, since we're using the ESSER funds for that, we could potentially build a hole in the budget if we decided to use it in year 3, because now the teachers were used to it. But it's something, I guess, that we would prepare for because it would benefit the students and it would streamline the process and make it more efficient.
And that's why I'm trying to negotiate a multi-year license,
Okay.
because we want this ESSER money. And in our meeting with our education specialist from the county, they talked about the idea that you should be looking for things that are going to go beyond this 2 years. So wherever you can get a multi-year license and build it out for 5 years, you should take advantage of that, because you're not going to see this money again. So rather than spend it on 5 things that will last 1 year, get one thing that can last 5 years, because that is going to give you so much more bang for your buck.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about the whole, and Ms.
Yes.
Polster and I were very cognizant of that. We talked about that. We looked into several software companies, but we didn't want to do too many of them because exactly that.
Sure.
Right.
So when you look at the whole ESSER grants, we're trying to hit many different things that were concerns of all the parents and the board and everything. So we have the HEPA filters, how do you move extended day, all these different things. Some are software that may build a little hole, but others are one-offs that we're really trying. So you're really trying to find that balance with that $1 million+ and
Sure.
that's how we approach the whole thing.
Okay, no, I trust you guys. Assessing our special needs community, how has that gone? How are our special needs students doing?
Well, I think same thing, right? They take assessments. Their IEPs are written around goals that have been identified based on the student's strengths or areas where they need to grow. And, they have very specific individualized instruction around those goals in the IEP. And then their, assessments also align in part to those goals.
Okay.
So, especially being in smaller groups, and receiving more targeted instruction in small groups, whether it be in resource in a specialized program, the teachers are able to target individually.
Right. And I know firsthand, I've been involved in several meetings, that a lot of the IEPs have been slightly adjusted or
Sure.
changes to just some of the programming with a lot of our special ed program students is occurring on a daily, if not weekly basis, as they see kids struggle or excel. So it is happening and it's in real time.
Okay, good. All right, and I just have one more question. So obviously, we only have $45,000 for mental health Is there somewhere in the main grant that would allow us, similar to where you were able to pull, your 20% was going to be utilized for that? Is there somewhere we could pull additional resources if needed?
I think that's hard to say, because even though, it seems like we have so much money,
I know.
there's already seems to be like some competing interests for some of it.
But we're also handling things through our normal budget
Right.
and through building budget. So it's not that it's been forgotten.
No.
It's, yeah, no, I'm just saying, but that's,
Yeah.
again, going back to that balance.
I mean, I think right now we're, 3 months into the school year. I think as things start to progress, I think obviously mental health will become even more apparent, or mental health concerns. And especially as we get to the end of the year with students, graduating, and especially the older grades. So just was
And I think,
curious.
with the guidance counselors at elementary, like we made a big investment in that, with the idea of mental health and
Got it.
helping kids get back to school. So that was a big, contribution on the part of this board to support that too. So,
Okay.
I kind of almost lumped that in with the
Sure.
mental health support, the fact that we have 3 new guidance counselors at the elementary. But, definitely your point is well taken.
All right, thank you.
All set? Squawk.
Hi, Ms. Postra. Welcome back. When you send out the slides for the community and to the board, just one minor thing, since this is the time to do it, is if you could just put ARP, American Rescue Plan, instead of APR, minor things. since
Oh,
you're
I'm
sending it out.
sorry about
Yeah,
that.
minor things, since you're
Okay.
gonna
Yep,
edit it
sorry.
anyway.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
the comment I have is that there's 2 things about the ESER 3, is that it was the minimum 20% for learning loss. We can exceed that.
Yeah.
So if there is that opportunity, as you incorporate, the feedback before you submit on the 24th, wherever possible, if you can go above 20%, where it makes sense to you, 25, 30%, the
Right.
minimum 20% was the minimum you had to
Mhm.
adhere to satisfy that. The second comment is that I do know that this requires every 6 months reporting. So is it because that there's that 6-month reporting cycle through the 2-year horizon, we can tweak the plan as needed? And if based on, let's say, enrollment data for the summer program or whatever, that I don't want us to be wedded to.
No, you're correct. And that's the caveat you put at the end,
Yeah.
that we do 2 tweaks, but you got to be careful. If you tweak too far, you have to
Right, then you
resubmit the
have
whole
to,
grant.
but you have to do it, and you
And
still have
look-
to report anyway.
you're correct.
The
every 6
reality
months.
is.
And we do that
that
with all the grants currently that we have.
If
go
we
on.
have to do an amendment because something rises or escalates to the
Yeah.
level, we're certainly open to doing the amendment.
Yeah.
We have done that in the past on other grants, whether it be Title II, Title III, whatever they are. It doesn't happen very often. And you're always better off, trying to anticipate, but I certainly recognize that, we have not been in this situation before, right? We have not received this amount of money from the federal government in, I don't think, ever.
This is really
So
unprecedented.
trying to, and it is, thinking about, trying to predict in the future exactly what the need is going to be it's like trying to look into a crystal ball, so if we do something rises to the level where we need to really address something and make an amendment because it's going to exceed 10% of that sub-grant or what have you, then we certainly can do the amendment if we need to.
And I just wanted to confirm, I think, Mr. Bisek, you confirmed ESER 1 and ESER 2 are already exhausted.
Yes. Is there anything
Right.
left in ESER 2? I don't think
There's
so.
some
It's
nickels or
accounted
something like that,
for.
right? Couple
Small
thousand,
amount of
yeah.
money, not
Okay.
much.
Because those ESER 1, ESER 2, they have different earlier expiration dates. So this
Yes.
is, okay. So that's fine. Okay. And then in terms of the summer program or the extended day, what data is it based on the teacher recommendations, or can a parent opt into it and say, my child needs it, I'm seeing it firsthand, it may not be reflected in Start Strong, because as you mentioned, some of those tests were like 10 questions.
Right.
So how is that?
So we're starting
process?
with a baseline criteria with certain cutoff scores or certain, like for instance, in Linkit, they use like does not meet standard, approaching standards, whatever it could be. So we're using that, this child needs this extra support. Again, for parents just to opt in, I want to be careful about that because we have an obligation to support the students where the gaps are. And I feel like, looking at our numbers and how many teachers we have available and the creation of the sessions, I'm not sure that we could just say, okay, anybody who wants to come can come, because I don't think we'll have the staff or the rooms to be able to support that. Now, that doesn't mean that, if you have a concern about your child and you're like, you know what, I would like my child to get some extra, assistance or what have you, we do have, IXL, for example, as a math program that can really be used independently by the students at any time from home on any math topic where, a child could do that at home. Or, reading A to Z, or going on something like commonlit.org. So, we certainly could share resources with parents as well, that if a child didn't qualify for the extended day program, but the parent wanted to do supplemental work at home, we could share those resources with parents.
Okay. And then when I looked at the, within the accelerating learning laws, all the brackets, just a commentary, I appreciated that grammar would be emphasized in elementary school, but the studies that I've seen is that reading comprehension is so essential to establish by 4th grade, because unless you have that reading comprehension, definitely at grade level, it's very challenging because it radiates out to other subjects like math and social studies. So in addition to grammar, is it possible to really look at raising the bar when it comes to reading comprehension, establishing it by 4th grade, whether it be consultant or tools? But I don't want to lose sight of that, because it is one of those skills that, like I said, impact multiple subject areas, and it is a very much an elementary school need.
So yes, and I think, again, as a board, you supported hiring a supervisor just for English language arts and social studies. And so, Dr. Walsh has really been digging in, and that is certainly an area of expertise for her. And I also think that speaks to the summer academies, as we bring new teachers in, to really work with the teachers who will be teaching those lower grades and have a week just on language arts instruction with, focus on comprehension and writing workshop, and those key pieces of our balanced literacy program would also go a long way, towards ensuring that our students are getting the best instruction.
Okay. And then just on the Linkit, is that one of the modules that we have not purchased, having the parent viewpoint, or is that not even a possibility with the Linkit platform?
It doesn't have a parent portal element.
Yes.
It's, while results can be shared with parents and discussed, its intention is really for the professionals to target how to help kids and to track progress and to inform instruction. So, as I said, at the fall conferences, teachers shared a general overview of where their child was, so, hey, it looks like, when we look at Linkit and we look at the F&P, your child is on target to meet expectations this year. But we're not, we did not send home, and again, this is coming from the consultants from Linkit, is that it shouldn't be sent home as like a score report to parents, because it's not really intended to be that way, especially at the beginning of the year. Because it can cause undue anxiety. It can, it's a snapshot, and it's meant to just give teachers a baseline so they know where they're starting with students. So it's more intended as a teacher tool, and to inform conversations with parents and to inform instruction.
Okay. Sorry. Two quick things. One is on the Start Strong, you said the data will be certified December 14th. Could we, at the December 20th meeting, have perhaps a summary of how we performed as a district?
I don't know if, I'm waiting for guidance on the state on that. It'll be, I do not believe that we're going to get any comparative data across districts. It is not being used to inform anything in our district performance report. So that start strong data, it's a little nebulous right now in terms of what we are supposed to share publicly. But it doesn't even look like right now, from what I can tell, that we'll be getting subgroup data broken out. We haven't gotten that yet. So I'll keep you posted if we get further direction.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful if it becomes available. And then when I was looking at the ESER 3, all the different requirements and how it differed from ESER 1 and 2, the minimum 20% requirement that has to be allocated was just the minimum. Certain activities that was encouraged was SEL and addressing the disproportionate impact on the subgroups. And I'm assuming the subgroups would include the special education. So was there, was Dr. Fenwick involved with that community so they could say, this is where we really need like phonics reading or whatever?
Yes. So, as we have talked about this grant and, have put ideas out there about how to spend it, certainly Danielle Wood and Janelle Nisi and Dr. Fenwick have been involved and have had input into the process
great.
along with, their staff.
All right, thank you very much.
Excellent. I have a lengthy list. No, I'm kidding. Thank you again for that presentation. It was very informative. I know a lot of hard work. A lot of people went into that, so we really appreciate it. I also appreciate.
That's the easy part.
Right.
Now executing is what's going to take most
I'll
time.
thank you on that one later. But also thank you for listening to, we've had a lot of lengthy questions here and the public did have some input. I do know that there was very few responses. I tend to agree that I don't think it was for our lack of putting those out there. And if people do have issues not finding something, I get emails all the time. Please email Dr. Gorman or we'll get you the right spot. But I know definitely your ears were open and I think it was not for a lack of options to notify you of to be heard. Was there any, I just have a couple things because most of everything, the beauty of being last is most everything was talked about. I know you took some things out. Did you add anything since the last presentation? Was there anything new that came out that we weren't thinking of or?
No, we just
okay.
had to move money around because
Yeah.
everything's been accounted for. So in
Okay.
order to make up that 213, we had to pull out those two things from the main grant that I highlighted on that slide. And they're like facilities type things that,
Okay.
again, you got to talk to Mr. Bicek about. I don't know what they are.
Uh-oh. Okay. The tutoring, the extended day with the learning loss. Thank you for clarifying that. The reason why, and I agree that, especially with we have such few nice weather days out that I know the kids want to go out and play before they don't want to be in school any longer. But is that something though also that's going to be an ongoing thing that's building in that hole? Like we want to do more late days. Is that something that we kind of?
Well, yeah, when the ESSER money, runs out, like that's a good question. Should the district, set aside money in its budget to always provide extended day services? If you're looking at 15,000 per school, it's a healthy commitment every year, and you'd have to figure out where in the budget would that be. I also think we have to see how this spending down happens, and how quickly the funds go once we start to build out the budgets and the number of sessions. We used to get Title I funds, and the schools that received Title I always had extended day programming for years. We did not qualify for Title I as of this year or last year. I don't know, but we're not a Title I district anymore. We don't have any schools that qualify for Title I. And look, that program, where it happened in those schools was very well received. But it would require, again, a commitment of financial resources, to be
Right.
able to maintain that types of programming when this federal money is gone.
Right, because I mean, we keep talking about learning loss, and I agree that's something we're trying to build ourselves back up to this level. But I think also going forward, I think it may be something, so that's something that we'd like to look at. If it's working, let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
So I know Linkit has been kind of talked about a lot and ad nauseum tonight. I may have been wrong here, but I could have sworn I heard something about parents getting notifications. But that being said, because
We did have some
Okay.
parents who pushed harder
Okay.
on that to get
Okay.
more specific results, and we handled those on a case-by-case
Okay.
basis.
Because I think so then, if not, is there something in Linkit then maybe we need more of like an overview again or a refresher for us then? So you said that like if a student's not meeting certain specifications, that a flag goes off or what some bells and whistles goes off. Is there a way though? Because I think one of the things we wanted with Linkit is because it tracks a student's progress.
Sure.
And no parent, and I totally understand with the you're saying with the anxiety levels, no parent wants to have, hey, your kid's doing great, and all of a sudden in third marking period they're not reading at this level or they're failing. But I thought it was great. I
Right.
think that's where.
Yeah.
Well, we
and-
have a mid-year assessment through Linkit, and we'll
Right.
have an end-of-year assessment, coupled with, our intermittent F and Ps, and our writing assessments are now being stored in Linkit as well.
Yeah,
So
it's just, again, as she said, it's one data point. So there's gonna be multiple, and there is a red flag that goes up, that parent will be reaching out to that child. The teacher will be reaching out to the parents of that child.
So I think we're all very curious, and we all recognize that this is a new program. I think we're all very curious. Probably not even year one, maybe year two or so, how this is going to progress. So I think one central, even though there's more data points, a central probably makes it much easier for the teachers and the different, especially as they go into higher grades.
Mhm.
I know there was talk in there of expanding it from K through 6 to through all the grades. When we're talking about that too, is there a module too for our younger too? So we have the Read and Reach program. Is that something that would be useful for that? 'Cause I know
I'd
special ed
have to
obviously,
talk
but-
to, Janelle Nisi about this. I think, in terms of storing data, yes,
Okay.
right? It could be useful. But in terms of Linkit's, assessment tools, I don't think they would be appropriate for kids that young. So that's why we're not even giving the beginning of year benchmarks for kindergartners and first graders, because you don't know if you'll get a valid result based on the fact that they're so young and maybe they haven't taken this type of assessment before.
Gotcha.
So even with our second graders, it was a challenge. They hadn't been in school in quite some time. Yes, they had done remote learning, and I think we have to give our kids a lot of credit because they're coming to the table with a good amount of technology skills, right? But it's a little bit different when you're, 8 years old, taking your first test on a computer, and
Absolutely.
it's a challenge for them. So I want to be cognizant of what's developmentally appropriate, and our principals, and I agree with them, of course, that having kindergartners and first graders, taking an assessment like that right at the beginning of the year, would probably be very anxiety inducing for kindergartners and first graders.
I think I have more questions I may just hit you up with just because I don't want to keep beating the LinkedIn. dead
And I
horse
think,
anymore.
I'm thinking in my
Wait.
head, like it would probably be beneficial for you to kind of see a demo,
Yeah, I think so. I think that would help a
However,
lot.
I can't show our data because we have to protect student confidentiality.
Do they have?
So
like
I
a
could talk to
sample
the
one?
guy at Chad Marcus at Linkit and just see, do you have a demo video that kind of shows with made up data
I think that'd be
what
very
Linkit
helpful.
does,
Yeah.
what it looks like, how teachers use it. That kind of would give an overview. I think that would kind of just give everybody a little bit of an opportunity for you to actually see what it looks like and
I think
what
that'd
its
be helpful because I think
capabilities
we
are.
all love the idea of it. And I think we're still a little confused. on it.
Yeah, and I understand that because,
So,
like I'm talking
yeah.
out of, my experience where, I dig into this kind of stuff all the time. So I'm like,
Totally.
of course, it just does this and then it does that and it cross-references and it runs reports and it shows by standard, but I know what that looks like because
Plus, it's
That's
how
what
it's, and then how it's being used. So there's like
Right.
a whole bunch of different ways. So it can get confusing. And I
yes,
think,
sure.
I think this
sure.
is a good, healthy discussion
Yep.
because we got some good questions out. That's it for me. The only other thing is the outside consultants. I know we talk about internally sometimes as well, which I think is a great idea. But I also agree that, I know there's sometimes college credits given for outside vendors, but also some of these consultants, I know where I am sometimes, if somebody from the outside comes to tell you something, you might listen to it differently.
Mhm.
So.
And it's also good for us to get our blinders off a little bit and
Yep.
to see what's going on out there with people who are leading research in certain areas or have expertise
Yeah.
in a certain area, and like you said, to have somebody from the outside present, their experience, you do listen to it a little bit differently when it's somebody,
And we have
who's
some,
coming.
we have amazing educators in this district. don't get me wrong,
Absolutely.
But some of the people that you brought up are definitely tops in their field. So it's great to have them come in
Mhm.
and touch upon. So we appreciate that. So thank you.
I would say one of my best experiences as a social studies teacher was being part of a federal grant called the Teaching American History Grant. And, it was paid for by the federal government. Dr. Garn, I think that's might have been how I
That was
first
part of that
got to
too.
know you
Yeah,
at
that
some
was
point.
great.
Our paths crossed through that.
Yep.
But we had the opportunity to meet John Meacham, if you know him. We were down at Princeton in the library doing the Jefferson papers with some
Right.
top scholars. It was, a summer program and then you had to execute during the year. And I think it's, we had multiple schools involved. It was just so phenomenal. And so, while we don't have that kind of money that the Teaching American History Grant had to bring people from all over together, that seed of an idea about bringing in an expert and kind of really digging in intensely for 4 days, I think could really have a very positive, powerful impact.
I mean, just right there, you saying that you remember that from, not too long ago, then,
Yeah.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So thank you. Does
Thank
anybody have any other
Yeah, I
comments?
just would like, sorry.
No, I have a couple
Oh.
questions. So the extended learning, can students sign up for that or is it just parents and teachers?
So again, I think we have to have a criteria to identify the students who need it first.
Okay.
Because there's a limited probably number of seats that teachers can do, and we want to prioritize for students where those learning gaps are.
Okay. And it's during lunch, right?
Well, right now, we're starting to run some sessions of this for seniors who have not yet met graduation requirements. And for ELA and math support for a specific population and for a certain need.
So like in the future, are you planning to change it from lunch?
I think that may depend at the high school level on where we think it's best to get kids. So in getting it started, lunch seems to be a better spot because so many high school kids are involved in after school stuff. And so that's why, taking feedback from the high school administration, they seem to think lunch is a better way to go.
Are you allowed to do it on weekends? Because like I find that lunch, at least for me, does not work. Because there are club
You need a
meetings.
break.
And as the elementary school
Clubs.
parents say, it's nice to talk to friends during lunch. Like,
Yes.
having to go to another class, so basically 8 straight periods is not fun. Like,
Right.
and you can't really motivate students to want to learn if they're having to learn during their lunchtime.
Yep.
And I feel like that will also make teachers more like, when are they going to eat lunch? Like they need time to themselves too. So I feel like if you can do it on weekends, I think that would be best because everyone has, well,
We floated a
but, like,
Saturday academy Was it last
It
spring?
was last spring. Yep.
Last spring,
Yep.
and we just had no
No
response
takers.
at all.
Yeah.
People did, it was hard to get teachers to
Mhm.
teach it, and the level of student interest was not good. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't revisit it and think of it as an option. But we kind of felt that way last
Yeah.
spring when we had some, I can't remember where that was.
No, you're
for,
right. It was
but-
last spring and we had, unfortunately, there was a lot of competing interests with youth sports and everything else. And it was, dead on arrival with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
That's
but it might be
weird.
worth re-exploring.
That's really, because when I was studying for the ACT and SAT, I could only do it on weekends. Like there
Mhm.
wasn't any other time. And so if parents are the ones that are signing up students for this, how are you going to motivate students to learn?
No, the parents wouldn't
Or
sign their
parents
kids
or
up. They would be
teachers?
identified. Like if I was concerned, my daughter, I get a letter at home that my daughter, needs some extra support based on the criteria and is being recommended for this program. I think that it is an opportunity, for a parent and a child to kind of have a discussion, say, you know what, it sounds like this might be good for you to get some extra help so that you can, grow in some areas where you're not making enough progress or where you may not be on grade level. It's not a graded high pressure thing, and it's not intended to be that way at all. But it really is intended to be a place where students build skills that they will need to be able to move forward and be successful. So as Ms. Kwok was saying, that reading comprehension piece is really important, right? So, if these students are recommended for extended day, some of that work may be around, hey, you know what, we're going to get this Scholastic magazine. We're going to do a close read of it. We're going to read it together. We're going to look at the text structure, in a way that's in a small group, and that allows the kids to just have some extra practice and exposure to skills where they may need to just get back on the wagon.
So but like still, how are you going to motivate students? Like parents are going to talk to their kids and tell them to learn? Like, is that the motivation?
Well, what? Do you think, you're right, like, because to Mr. Kaufman's point, right? Like the kids have had a long day at school, right? And now
Yeah.
you're telling them to come after school for more school.
And during lunch.
And there'll be some kids who will be motivated to do it and, that, I think that hopefully the motivation is a little bit intrinsic,
Mhm.
because like I said, we wouldn't assign grades or something like that, or be punitive if you don't come. I mean, there has to be some.
Yeah, and that's the
degree-
art of teaching,
Yeah.
it's not a science and it's not exact. And, we have great professionals that are able to help motivate a lot of the students, especially ones that may not be motivated to begin with, but.
And I
that-
also
that's
think the
daily struggle.
relationship with the teacher,
yeah.
if I'm a fifth grader and I know my fifth grade teacher is doing extended day and I've got a good relationship with my fifth grade teacher, then there's a good chance I'm going to go, because I know that teacher is there to help me and to encourage me and move me along. So I think, our teachers' relationships with students will also play a role in that motivation piece. They'll come because they like their teacher and, they know they're going to be in a small group and get some extra time with their teacher.
Okay, so that brings me to the last question I had. What teachers are going to be doing? Like, is it just AP teachers? Is it? Who's doing it?
It's teachers who are willing to sign up for this, who are interested in doing it. Of course, they're going to be compensated for it,
Mhm.
and the teachers who at this point feel like they are interested in working with students in this capacity, and putting in the extra time to provide this service for our students.
So like the first few sessions, will they be monitored to make sure that they're doing it just not for the money, just like for the overall, like, I don't know, like, I feel like
Sure,
sometimes
our
teachers will
teachers
just
are
sign up.
very professional.
I know that, but, like-
There will be resources that they use,
Mhm.
there'll be a meeting ahead of time of what the expectations are. They will look at, the population of students who are coming to them
Mhm.
and, provide the environment that, of course, we want it to be, a comfortable, relaxed, positive learning environment, but, you know, they have to report attendance, they have to submit timesheets, you know, all of those things for the accountability piece, I think is what you're asking.
So they will be monitored.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Just like we walk around and we
Mhm.
observe formally and informally, the same thing goes on with these sessions as well.
Okay. That's all I had.
Ms. Brogan, did you have one more or? you-
You know, as I sit here, I don't want to lose sight that we have 510 professional teachers trained in our classrooms.
Yes.
Who know their students and who routinely, year to year, are assessing their students. So although these are, you know, Linkit and our state tests and all the things that we're doing, we also have that teacher in a classroom with 18 to 25 children in the elementary schools who has a relationship
Yes.
with those students. So I don't want to lose track of that. And I think they know the pacing, they know the stress. They can assess that as they're going along. And that I don't want to lose sight of, because that's what
Well-
happens in our school district year to year.
And that's why I'm
Right.
trying to emphasize the importance too of us looking at, you know, something like Start Strong and Linkit combined with what we're actually seeing in the classroom, you know, so we can't just look at, you know, Linkit. We could use it as a baseline, right? But let's see how that student is doing on those topic tests as those topic tests come up. Let's see how that student is doing in reading, you know, as these units unfold. So I think they have to be combined. We can't look at them in isolation, and you're absolutely correct. You know, as we walk around and see the work that our teachers are doing, you know, their ability to pull small groups and teach targeted instruction to 4 or 5 kids at a time, their ability to deliver a mini lesson, their ability to, you know, ask the right questions to assess or create the right assessment that's going to give them the information about, you know, what they need, I think is, you know, we do have a very professional staff and very committed and so knowledgeable, you know, that I totally agree with the point you're making.
And of course, parent feedback is really important, because a parent sees what their children can do, and they have the expectation of what my child should do. But the expectation might not always be for that particular grade at that particular time. Does it make sense in this to put additional money into parent conferences so that we already fund through the budget the parent conferences in the fall and spring for some of grades? Does it make sense to do a mid-year check? I'm just asking.
No,
the
it
question.
does, but it's just, again, you know, the money's
Yeah.
And
gone
also-
so fast.
I don't know if it makes sense, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Give
Yeah.
thought to it.
We got to think quick because this is
Yeah, I
next
know.
week.
No, I know, but I'm just.
No, but it also might
listening
be
to
one of those
yeah.
smaller pots that might not change it by 10%. You know what I mean? You know, so I will definitely float the idea with our team.
Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I just have one more comment on the multi-year contract. When we were trying to sign a multi-year contract for STEPS program, there was substantial saving there or substantial cost difference, we were told that we cannot do multi-year contract. So
Right.
I just want to
But that, I
understand.
think that was because it was a rental, that was an actual space that if we had to pull out of that space, there was a whole legal thing, but.
Right, so I personally see that very similar, that if we are signing a 5-year commitment with a vendor, and we have to pull out after, we should have a clause where we can terminate it. Especially because internally within the district, we don't have feedback yet.
Yeah, I just don't think companies do that, though. I know I've seen some of them that.
Right, so I'm just
Yeah.
asking that
Okay.
like from those Department of Education rules, how is this different from the multi-year lease? That's all I'm asking. I just want to understand. How are those two situations different from a contract perspective?
all set, Dr.
All right, so
got it.
I have a short report,
Oops,
just staying on COVID. But remember, just reminding everybody that on Wednesdays, we do provide the free testing for teachers, parents, as well as students. Ms. Towns has been running that. It's working extremely well. We get, somewhere around 40+ people that come every Wednesday and get the free test. And that's at BF after school. So along with that, the health department has offered 2 clinics. One that just passed, we had 179 students that are from ages 5 to 11 get their shot. And we're going to do the next one this Thursday on November 18th at 3:30. We have 50 spots left. We just sent out a blast, as well as the town sent out a blast to the community. So I'm probably sure that those 50 spots might even be filled already. But just think about it, that'll be like over 400 kids, or close to 400 kids that'll be COVID with their first shot. There'll be in 3 weeks a second dose shot with the clinics as well. And I know a lot of the students are already going to their own pediatricians. So I think we're going to be up to 30–40% in the next couple of months of our 5 to 11-year-olds. So we're looking forward to that. That's all I have.
Dr. Gorman, will you be putting a survey out to see how many of the 5 to 11 population are vaccinated? Self-reporting?
Yeah, we could do that. I want to wait a little while because it's
Yeah.
so early, but maybe in the new year or something like that. Sure.
Yes.
But at the pace that we're seeing right now, I think it is going to wind up about at least a third or a little bit higher. I don't know if we're going to pass the 50% mark or not, but yeah, but still, that's going to be a tremendous, the one kid that I spoke to, she was all excited she got it. And she's like, oh, now I don't have to ever get quarantined because, so it was cool, like how her mind shifted with that. So that was nice.
I got one of those, I'm immune now.
Right. I mean, yeah. It's
So be careful.
Right.
So, all right, with the agenda. All
Excellent.
right, so then I present for consideration A, attendance at conferences.
A,
I second.
Ms. Brogan,
yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo.
Yes,
I present B, administration.
I move B.
Second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
I have a quick question before I vote. On the first one, the HIB report, I just wanted to confirm that each building has an anti-bullying specialist as well as a district specialist, a district case.
It's required.
It's required. So each building has and is that a teacher or the administrator or is it a principal, a separate person?
It could be, it's different in every
It just
building. but
depends. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Lumbo,
yes,
I present C, curriculum instruction.
I move C.
I second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo.
yes,
I present for consideration D, human resources.
I move D.
Second.
thank you.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo.
Yes,
Then we jump to page 11. I present for consideration E, finance.
I move finance.
Second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo.
yes. Okay. Approval of bills, Ms. Quack, you're up.
I reviewed the bills and all the ones that totaled $2.966 million. And I present for approval of bills.
Second.
Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Lumbo.
Yes. Announcements. Ms. Brogan,
Am I late start?
Oh, I figured, oh. we're still doing that.
Just of interest is 5 sleep tips for parents of tired teens. Something that we don't talk about all the time about in the district. So just of interest. I just would like to acknowledge the good work at the high school for their Veterans Day breakfast and really honoring the veterans, listening to their stories, asking good questions. And the foods students for making a wonderful breakfast. Very impressive. Dr. Bray's doing a great job.
Yes.
With those students. It was, restaurant level. So it was really great. And, I can't help but reflect upon the election. And, personally, I'd like to thank the community for coming to the polls and voting. And Chris, you will be missed greatly by me, and I'm sure the rest of the board. And I'm glad that you still have a few more meetings with us. So
Thank you.
right, and congratulations to Mrs. Paul.
Mhm.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Donnie?
Just want to congratulate Ms. Kwok and Ms. Brogan and Mr. Mahmood. And also take a moment to acknowledge Susan Madison. I wish she was still here. It's a really difficult position, to be a board member. You're under the scrutiny of the community, long hours. It's a big responsibility. And I appreciate that she stepped up to the plate and, wish she was still here to say, she had a great campaign and she would have been a great asset to the board, and just thank her for running. And also just to Sheila, no lawn signs, no flyers, no
Amen.
Facebook ads. Whatever you're doing, you should market it and pass it on to the rest of us. So congratulations to both of you.
That's right.
Excellent.
So following up on Ms. Brogan's flyer, I did want to remind everybody, December 1 is the public presentation. And then you said a survey will be going out to the community, the whole community shortly thereafter. Can you just share the time frame for that?
So we just put out the flyer to the whole community. It was a little, postcard type of thing. That's December 1st will be at BF doing a general presentation about the whole alternative school schedule. And then I think either a couple days later or the week after, we'll be sending out a survey to everybody or everybody that we have emails that are all part of that whole MailChimp and everything like that. But it'll also be out there that our business people in the community, as well as other people that don't have children in the school system, have a chance to click on and weigh in on this whole decision.
Okay, so I just want to highlight that. And then the second thing is this Wednesday, there will be a flood seminar at Village Council, which I think will be very helpful, interesting. I wanted to say thank you to Ms. Polstra and the administration for all the work that went into ESSER 3 presentation. I mean, it was a lot of work and the deadline's fast approaching. So thank you.
I just want to clarify with the Wednesday that's at the Village Council's doing that. And that's just their engineer talking about all the research they've done over the years. And they do this every couple of years. It's not a board task force
Right.
meeting or anything like that night.
Yeah, it's just informational, but it would be interesting. I wanted to acknowledge the election and just it's you'll be missed, and it's just contested elections are really interesting, and for everybody who stepped up, there's a lot of gratitude from the community. It's a lot of work, and thanks to everybody.
Excellent. Wow. I'll piggyback on that. I want to congratulate, the two, Ms. Brogan and Ms. Kwok, and I'm going to be sorry. I'll still bug you on phone calls, I promise. It was Mr. Kaufman that talked me into this many moons ago. And I, again, miss Madison as well, but, and I congratulate Mr. Mahmood. And we look forward to seeing him here. But what Chris said is perfect. I don't think a lot of times people realize the amount of time and dedication that everybody that's here, whether it's board members and its staff members, put into this. And it truly is a love of the community and a love of our students in our district. And it's a piece of all of us that goes into that. And I really appreciate everyone that's been here and everybody that wanted to be here. So I really do. So I'm going to miss your, you can still call me and I want your discussion points, please. But you do, we'll do that. That being said, it was actually a busy 2 weeks that we haven't seen each other. I was at the Veterans Day celebration at Van Ness Square, which was very, very moving. I always like to see the high school students handing out the poppies, and Mount Roush from the high school, who's going on to West Point and is an amazing speaker. And it just shows how our schools work closely with our veterans. And it's just an amazing ceremony, lots of music, see all vets. Mr. Paoli puts on a great presentation every year. They're really a great asset that we have. The sports has been, we were saying before that a lot of the fall sports are winding down while the winter sports are kicking up and spring is starting to notch up. It was a fortunate loss on Friday. The football team did a great job, but with the band and the cheerleading and all the other students, it was really a great time. The girls cross country and the volleyball, everyone's doing so well. And then I see that a lot of the tryouts for the spring teams of baseball just occurred. And I see that basically every HSA and sports team has a fundraiser for either Christmas or Thanksgiving or all the holidays. And it's great. So if anybody needs any Ridgewood gear, I'm sure go to the HSA website of your choice, and there's probably something there. Dr. Gorman said too, the clinic that's coming up, and as well as the COVID testing on Wednesdays. I've gone to the one at BF, the testing. It's amazing. It's in and out. They're doing a really great job. Ms. Towns really did a great job putting that together. So we thank you. And the last thing too is last weekend, me and Ms. Kwok were invited as the president and vice president to the Indian community's Diwali celebration that was held at the Student Center. And unfortunately, this year it had to be held smaller because of COVID restrictions. So they actually had a waiting list. And it was, I think, Mr. Donnie, it was 40% less. It was almost half.
Yeah, I was not one of the organizers this year, but yeah, we had to put, usually the Indian community is growing in Ridgewood. And even last year, we realized that campus center may be becoming smaller two years ago. But this year, even from 2018, the total number had to be cut down by 40% because of COVID. But on that note, not as an organizer, but as a attendee, I attended both. So there were two events from Indian communities around Ridgewood and school system. One was on November 6th that you attended for high school, and one was yesterday at BF. That was for the broader Indian community, not just Ridgewood. And I have to say, at both places, the custodial staff was extremely helpful. All four custodial staff that I saw them working. I did not see any no's. Like whenever I was just noticing that if anybody said, hey, can we have more tables here? Or they were going, like voluntarily going and cleaning up the trash, or if these were kids activities, both programs had kids. Yeah. If somebody spilled something, they were right there to clean it up, and friendly. They were very friendly. And so both places, the custodial response was really good.
That's great to hear. We'll pass that along. Thank you.
I absolutely, that was amazing. I also got to see Mr. Donnie dance, which was amazing as well. And the student dances that they put so much into these. So it was a great time. So I was very honored to be hiding in the back there. But so it was great. It was really great to see. That's all I have with announcements, but kind of transitioning to committee reports. I know me and Mr. Gorman met with the Federated. There was a lot of great discussions. They're moving into their fundraising kind of year.
Yeah, and the Wizards are
Yes.
coming back, so they're all excited about that.
Yeah, they wanted somebody from the board to play, so yeah, I know Chris plays basketball. That may be our only hope. So we'll see. Yeah. I think that was it from the Federated, right, Dr. Norman? I'm trying to think of what else.
Yeah, it was just general
Yeah.
stuff that, yeah.
Was there any other, I know the finance committee, we and Ms. Quack are working out dates for the December meeting. We'll get back to that. Is there any other, I think facilities just met the other day, correct? No?
That was
So we
last
haven't
meeting.
met,
Last meeting,
we haven't
okay.
met since last meeting.
Okay.
There were some emails parents sent to us,
That's what I was saying.
but we haven't met since.
Okay.
last meeting.
We had a curriculum meeting. Ms. Brogan and I, we had a regularly scheduled meeting. We looked at some course revisions. There was Ms. Brogan made a suggestion about perhaps organizing the courses maybe by career pathways. So that may be something that could be, that's a suggestion for just if you are thinking of, let's say, going into accounting or architecture, here are the kind of courses that you may want to consider. So that was one. And then I did not mention it at the curriculum meeting, but I thought I'd mention it now, is for the next meeting, which will be in January, is it possible to incorporate, or maybe you already do, but I'm not, maybe it's just maybe not being implemented the way that parents would like. Maybe one session on digital literacy, especially now with having gone through COVID. Some of the students just simply don't know that everything is on a public server. Snapchat or whatever, those things, they don't disappear. They are permanent records. And there's a lot of responsibility when you give a one-to-one kind of instructional model, and just to raise awareness of social media and really digital literacy, I think would be really welcomed by parents.
Yeah, I'm happy to share with the committee where we integrate those digital
Yeah.
citizenship standards and where that takes place. in the
But there's not like a specific training, like a consent before they get the Chromebook, right? Like here's what.
Yeah, no,
this
they
is
sign-
what it
they-
is.
They
Yep.
sign an
sign
acceptable use
off.
agreement.
Okay.
Teachers go over different protocols and rules
Okay.
and all that stuff. And we've brought in digital media speakers and to train the parents, but it doesn't hurt to bring them back every 4 years or something like that. We could look
Especially,
at that.
with the pandemic last year,
Sure.
everybody was online. And so some of the awareness, maybe because they've constantly been surrounded by it, that they're just using it for non-educational purposes. Thank
We
you.
got you. Okay. Discussion items? Anybody have it?
I figured. I only get 2 more times. So one of the things I wanted to bring up, and again, I just want to clarify because I made a comment on social media and it was taken out of context that I was doing this to try to keep myself on this board. And that wasn't, the comment was about expanding the board to 7 members. And during the campaign, this was brought up a lot because we're one of the biggest districts. So one of the reasons I bring it up is because one of the concerns is, will there be enough people that want to be on the board? And if you look at the last 2 elections, we had 5 candidates in the previous election and we had 5 candidates in this election. And one of the things that stuck out in this election, even more so than the last one, was how close the voting was. Aside from Sheila, the difference between Ms. Kwok and Mr. Mahmood was less than 1%. The difference between Mr. Mahmood and myself was 0.2%. The difference between myself and Ms. Madison was 0.3%. So if we're looking at the community and we're saying, well, there's a large majority of the community that backed what Susan Madison was speaking about. And then there was a large group that obviously followed, were supportive of myself and then Muhammad. And looking at the NJSA statutes, 18A:12-12, which provides in the pertinent part, if the board of any district shall determine by resolution that is for the best interest of the schools that membership of the board shall be increased for whatever number, yada, yada. But basically it's saying that, is it something that benefits the community? And so when you have an election that shows that there's so many people in this community that support different ways of thinking. I mean, Miss Madison obviously has a whole different support group that follows the things that she's concerned about. I mean, obviously, we all have similar concerns, but I just think moving forward, it's something that this future board should look into. And I think Sheila and I, you and I spoke about it during the campaign and even after. So is that with a large district like Ridgewood, with so many different ways of thinking, is that something that would benefit this board and benefit the community? And I personally think it would. And again, my ship has sailed, even though I keep checking the final numbers and it still hasn't confirmed it. My ship has sailed. But I do think that this is an opportunity for the board to look at what is in the best interest of the community. So I would like you all to be open-minded moving forward, that maybe, because again, I hate to say it, if this becomes a grassroots campaign by the community, ultimately, just like one village, one vote, a judge is going to back the community. If that's what the voters want, then so maybe you guys can also tap into the community, create another a better dialogue and put that maybe on the next election, because I guess that was something that was brought up. Well, why wasn't that proposed as in the election as an option, like as a question, excuse me. Why wasn't that on there? Because again, we're the largest district of Bergen County. And again, I know there has a lot of moving parts to that, but it's something I think we should think about. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, again, expanding Blue Acres, the conversation, and Mike, moving forward is putting together a committee that can look at maybe ways to try to mitigate future flooding issues. I think that's something that we really need to look at. And then lastly, Tom. So we have built-in snow days. Once we use those up, I know we always start eating into our vacation time. Is there any way we can look into maybe remote days? And listen, there's nobody that loves a snow day more than I. Kids love their snow days, but when it starts to eat into vacation time, what happens is people don't sacrifice their vacations. What they do is they just take their kids out of school. So maybe, I don't know if that's an option. Or something.
It's not a total option just yet. The state reversed its allowance from last year to this year.
Okay.
However, there's been much more momentum and much more discussion about this. So I see this opening up in the near future at the state level to allow us that option.
Okay. All right. So just those are my quick discussion points, and that's it.
Did you happen to see the article I sent around with the video about
Yes.
Blue Acres?
That's
So
what.
Blue Acres, I don't know if that's really something that works for this community, or we even be eligible. And how Blue Acres works is the money is used to purchase a home, which they demolish to allow for, wetlands or floodplains or whatever. So there's a lot of talk about Blue Acres. Some would like to see it not be voluntary, to be mandated, and that, in certain areas that are prone to flooding, those houses would be bought and you don't have a choice. I think that would probably go right to a court system if they
Sure.
actually ended up doing that.
Yeah.
But Blue Acres is very particular in what they are doing.
No, I understand. And I guess, only coming from a real estate perspective, trying to sell a home now in a flood zone is close to near impossible. So if you're a homeowner in a flood zone and you're thinking, there's no way I'm selling my house, and then potentially Blue Acres comes in and says, hey, I'm going to give you market value. Well, right now the market value is through the roof. You potentially get out of that situation, get yourself into another situation, which is better, and provide a service to the community. Again, there's so many moving parts to this, but I think the important thing is that we start the discussion now to try to mitigate. Again, we almost lost the fields again the other day with rains. And so, the nice thing is that Blue Acres works with DEP. And I think that's the biggest challenge when looking at how we fix the situation. So again, I'm going to be gone, but I'd like to see a committee start the process of talking about, because again, I don't know any other way other than Blue Acres to kind of fix this situation, or at least kind of come up with some mitigation process.
Blue Acres is interesting, but I'm not sure completely applicable. And one of the things that I would caution anyone trying to seriously consider Blue Acres for this, that you're taking a home out of the out of the tax roll for the city. So I think that has been some of the hesitation on the part of the village council and other municipalities, because once, you lose that tax base.
I agree. And I guess the only thing I would say to that is how much is the town now spending in mitigation for the flood? What is it? What did they just approve? A bond for over $1 million? Am I right?
But we're just talking about the Board of Ed, like our.
Yeah, no,
properties,
but I think it needs to be.
Which are
a-
covered by insurance.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, absolutely. But I think, we got to look at the community as a whole and, it affects unfortunately our fields.
I just don't want to overstep on property that is not Board of Ed property. This seems to be beyond educational curriculum and about the desire for the school district to advance student progress. You're talking about a program and an enterprise to buy homes that neighbor Board of Ed property.
Yeah, but our fields get affected by them,
Okay,
like I just,
that's fine. I'm just putting it out
no, I
there
totally
that,
understand, but I guess
there's a certain
I
guidelines that we follow.
absolutely. But the problem is we were lucky to have insurance pay for it, but Scott can speak to this. How much our insurance rate's going to go up next year because of this? I can't even, they're going to skyrocket, getting insurance to cover our fields after what happened. Again, if we could come up with a way that work with the town, to work with the county, to work with the state, to work with DEP, to come up with a solution that helps everybody. Again, it's just a discussion point. Again, I think it's important that we start that process.
On the first part of what you said, Mr. Kaufman, about the board, yes, it is a 5-member board. There are school districts that have that are bigger than ours and still is run by 5.
Sure.
And where I have seen an expansion has been necessitated by usually a tremendous double-digit growth in terms of student population. So I haven't seen a scenario where a board has expanded because it felt like the people who, I haven't seen that situation.
Well, there's also much smaller districts with larger, Glen Rock,
Correct.
for what?
No, I'm
Yeah.
just talking about Ridgewood and I'm saying that where, the rationale in terms of making sure that every voice in the community is heard. I think that's a valuable one. And that's what I ran on, is to make sure that it's not, you mentioned having priorities and perhaps putting a restriction on having just parents of students serve on the board. And I think it's gratifying that you recognize that the whole community should be heard. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Moving on to the minutes. I know there was some questions about the October 4th and the November 1st. So the October 4th executive session and November 1st executive session and the November 1st regular public meeting. I guess there were some questions for changes to be looked at. So they're in, I guess we're going to look into those.
Well, suggestions have been made.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I don't know how you want to move about. So we get a lot of input about them. Should I just share them all out with the board and then in an FYI and everybody looks at them and then you?
No, the way
decide?
we've done it is
If it just make sure it's reflected, I guess I think the questions on this one was, it was something that was not said. or
yeah, it
said,
was,
so it's just-
not, yeah, it was, so the minutes should be a reflection, an accurate reflection of what occurred. So,
And I just don't think there was an answer to it. So usually it's like, hey, these
Yeah.
stand or whatnot.
yeah, so it should be incorporated and then the revision gets uploaded to the drive.
I think that if there's significant change to a minute, then we need to pull it and
Yeah,
put it back
That's
on
what we're
the
doing, yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
Right, but
If
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
just
Should I
a-
share the
If it's just a
original?
wordsmith kind of, the should be in or
Right.
whatever.
Right,
it is.
right. No,
So what I'm
agree.
thinking about is sharing both versions or something like that, and then all of you could look at it and see, what was originally proposed and then what the change.
Well,
Yeah,
the
if
original
it-
is on there right now, so
But yeah, if you can enable even tracking, that would be good. I've had that feedback in a while when agenda changes or a document changes. And if I have to go back and look at the whole document again, if track changes can be enabled, that's best. That
Oh,
would
yeah.
be great.
Yeah, then you can see what's changed.
Yeah,
That's
if we
what I
can
think
see
would be
what
helpful for
changed.
everybody.
That would save us a lot of time.
yeah.
So I'm just proposing then the October 18th regular public meeting minutes, and then the other three we'll table to the next meeting.
Perfect.
All right, I'll make a motion for October 18th regular public meeting. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye, ayes have it. Okay. Other business? Anybody have anything new? Other? No, so. Okay, we're gonna move to the second public comment portion of the evening. There's nobody in the audience. We do have a one hand raised. Hello, Miss Weber, you're on with the board.
Good evening, Mr. Lambo, and to the rest of the board members and administrators. Lori Weber, 235 South Irving Street. Just wanted to say, members of the public don't get to ask questions during a presentation like the board members do. So somewhere during that back and forth between Mr. Donnie and Ms. Polstra, I actually gained an enhanced understanding of how Linkit works and its value as an educational tool. I actually found the conversation, even though at some points it seemed a little strained, interesting. And I think that there were points that came out because of the discussion. And frankly, I'm glad that we have interested and engaged board members who ask a variety of questions and bring up concerns that are raised by parents of our students. I don't think that anybody should question when a board member says that they've heard from parents with specific questions. I think it's wonderful. I mean, having lived through many years where board members didn't do things like that, it's great to see parents getting that kind of direct feedback at a board meeting. And I will say that I look forward to productive board meetings that aren't marred by repeated jabs from one board member at another. Frankly, they seem self-serving, and as a member of the public, they are painful to watch. As far as expanding the size of the Board of Education is concerned, I will say that, we don't have a great record of robust participation in these elections. And so that if increasing the size results in less or in some cases no competition for open seats in an election, I don't think that that is necessarily a positive move. I think before we can talk about expanding the board, which I don't have a problem with, I think we at least have to see if we can generate a broader field of candidates to go with that expanded board. And that's all I have to say for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good night.
Good night, thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the second public comment portion of the evening. And then I'm going to make the motion that this meeting of the Ridgewood Board of Education be adjourned. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Not too bad. Hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.